Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. This is session 1 of the CIA Part 2 program session series. I am Arpit Garg. I'm a qualified chartered accountant and a certified internal auditor. First of all, a warm welcome for everyone who have started their CIA journey. All those who have cleared so far by the Part 1, congratulating you all who have planning to appear for the Part 1, please do well. So Part 2, before we jump into the session series, can I quickly hear the word from everyone? How many of you have just started with the Part 2 or who have not gone through the Part 1 yet? Anyone who is coming directly for the Part 2 sessions, can you just call out your name?
Yes, sir.
Shubham,
Yeah.
not to open the video. Shubham, not to open the video. Yeah. All right. Okay. So,
Yes, sir.
all right.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Yes,
right. So Harsha, Komal, Neha, and Jagdish.
Yeah, hi, Abid Shivak on this side.
Shivakant also. Okay. Okay.
Amitabh.
Yes.
Okay. So there are quite of them. Okay, great. And how many of you have cleared the Part 1 and coming for the Part 2 exam? Anyone? I think Mudit, you have one.
Yeah, I am.
You have cleared your Part 1, right? Okay. And
Me
anyone
too,
else?
sir. Ankita here.
Ankita also. Great, wonderful, folks. All right, great. Wonderful. So let's start this. So I'll just set the context for today's session, everyone. So let's talk about the CIA as a whole program in the first few minutes, because some of you have directly come from the Part 2. Okay, and some of you already would have the context. So basically, the CIA, as in the Certified Internal Auditor program, has 3 parts, basically, right? So the Part 1 is all about the foundation of internal auditing. Part 2 is all about practice of internal auditing, and Part 3 is all about the business acumen piece and the IT section of it. So mostly the Part 1 is all about setting up the foundations, which starts about understanding what is all internal audit activity is all about, understanding the basic IPPF framework, which is very, very important for us as internal auditors to know. And then we understand some of the key terms and the key things that we do exactly which is GRC, which is governance, risk management, and control, all about it. And finally, it ends up with a unit called fraud, risk, and control. So that's precisely 7 or 8 units in the Part 1, which is all about the Part 1, which is all about foundations. The Part 2 is all about practice of internal auditing. So everyone who is being part of the internal audit domain and who have practically done some of the internal audit engagements, it will be much easier for you all to pick this project. All those who have not done it, it will be good learning for you to understand how actually practically internal audits are done. Okay, so part 1 is about 125 MCQs paper, where we have 150 minutes, while the other 2 parts, which is Part 2 and Part 3, is 100 questions each, which is 120 minutes for the examination. So we have just 2 hours to appear for 100 questions in the examination. That's a very brief about what are the Part 1, Part 2, Part 3 all about, and the structure of the examination. Everything is MCQ based. There is no break in the time that is of 120 minutes. If you want to take a break, you can take it, but that will be continued from your examination time. So that's very brief about the Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. You can choose to look at the orientation program sessions, which must be there on the LMS, which have much more detail all about the CIA program. It talks about Part 1, Part 2, 3 is what all about, including detail about the content, sections, units. And in fact, it talks a bit about what is the overall scope of the risk advisory domain. Okay, so my suggestion is please do have a look at the orientation program video for that purpose. Now, coming on the Part 2, practice of internal auditing, let me just quickly set the context. As I said, how many questions paper is it? There are how many questions? Can anyone tell me how many questions we have in Part 2? It's very, very important to understand that, folks.
100.
How many questions we have?
100.
We have a total
100
questions. 100 questions we have to appear in how many minutes? It will be 120
120
minutes.
120
Which means that we have only 1.2 minutes per question, which is honestly sufficient because it's all MCQ based. All we need to learn is practice, understand the concept very thoroughly. We need to pick and choose those right set of options so that we know, okay, where we need to, which answers needs to be choose, which needs to be excluded, which needs to be kind of should be your right choice. That is something that we learn as we move throughout the session series. And with that, we will build up the skill to answer it much faster during the examination also. Okay, so precisely 100 questions, 120 minutes for the examination without a scheduled break time. You can appear for this exam at any given point of time once you're ready. My preference would be as soon as we complete the session series, my recommendation and push to every one of you right here would be is that you appear as soon as possible. The reason is we keep brushing the topic, we keep revising it all throughout the session series, and that will help you to kind of keep the topics very confident that you have the good hold on the content. And as the time lapse, let's say if you take 5-6 months down the line, that okay, or let's say 3-4 months even down the line that you want to take a break or you're busy with something, you will lose the hold on the concept. So my suggestion is always that as soon as the session series is over, try to appear for the exam within maximum month time. So try to schedule between 2 to 3 weeks down, but try to appear as soon as possible. So that's another important recommendation. Third important thing is please try to attend as much as live sessions. While I understand every one of us would have been professionals or would have just started our journey or must be aspiring to start, which we will surely start soon. But at the same time, please try to get some time for the live sessions, because live sessions is all about participating, sharing experiences. It's not just me speaking all about it. It's also you all to participate it and understand it things better, brainstorm somewhere on certain topics and move forward. So it's not a typical learning. And some of you who have done part 1 or part 3 with the sessions, that the way it is conducted, it's going to be absolutely participative. A lot of times you will have to read the content with me. A lot of times you have to take a lot of examples. A lot of time it will be good to hear examples from every one of you. I see the average experience of the people in the group is more than 8 years, which means that we have sufficient learning, sufficient knowledge to understand things and can share across with the younger folks, with the experienced folks all together. So it's a lot to learn together. And that's the way we will conduct the sessions. Okay, all good? Excited for the start of the journey of the part 2, everyone? Can I quickly hear the word yes from everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Only 3 yes,
Yes,
only 4 yes. Yes, out of 30 plus folks, can I quickly hear the word?
Yes.
Dilip, are you with us? Sure, good
Yes.
stuff. Hare
Yes,
Krishna,
yes, sir.
Jagdish,
Yes.
Komal, Lavina, you are with us. Yeah, you know how the sessions are conducted. Yeah, so
Yes,
can I quickly hear the word yes?
Yes, sir.
Mudit, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. So let's now come on the context piece. As I said about the part 2, now let's talk about what is in part 2. So as I said, folks, part 2 is all about practice of internal auditing. So we are talking about how actually we do internal audits. So in the part 2, we have 4 sections. Section 1 is talking about managing the internal audit activity. The tentative weightage is 20% of the section 1. What is in the section 1? We'll go to the next slide and we'll understand it better. The section 2 is about planning the engagement. Section 3 is about performing the engagement, and section 4 is about communicating engagement results and monitoring progress. Okay. Section 1, 20% weightage. Section 2, planning the engagement, 20% weightage. Section 3, performing the engagement, 40% weightage. And section 4, communicating engagement results and monitoring progress, 20% weightage. Folks, it's roughly about a 225 pages book of GLIM content that we'll be using. Trust me, everything is important in the content. While the weightage goes here and there, everything in this particular part is important, right from chapter 1 to chapter 10. There are 10 units. Everything is important. We need to be fundamentally clear with all the concepts and we cannot leave anything for the examination. Okay. Now, what is in section 1? As it says, managing the internal audit activity, we'll understand 4 things in this section, which is internal audit operations. Okay. The first unit, which we are in fact going to start today also, is about internal audit operations. So basically, as the word says, folks, managing the internal audit activity, we are going to understand that as like any other department in any company, like any, let's say, procurement function of a company or sales function of a company or marketing function of a company, or for that matter, finance function of the company, any function of the company, the way it is managed. Today, with the practice of internal auditing in the part 2, we'll understand that how internal audit activity or internal audit function should work, how it should be managed. When can we say that the internal audit function is effectively managed? All of it is something that we need to understand, very, very important from examination point of view, is in the unit 1, where we'll understand about internal audit operations, who has what sort of roles in it. So it's a very important to set a foundation that, okay, how do we manage the internal audit activity? The second and third unit is all about understanding the different types of engagements that we can do is around assurance engagements, around the consulting piece of the engagements. Okay, so we'll understand what are the different assurance engagements that we can do, what is assurance engagement all about, what is consulting engagement, and understand the difference consulting engagements and what needs to be taken care of or not. So that's all about this section. So section 1 is basically unit 1 to unit 3 precisely. It also covers the unit 4, by the way, which is internal audit plan. But I have purposely split the internal audit plan into the section 2 because that is where the flow start. That is where the flow start. That okay, once we know that okay, this is how the internal audit activity is going to be managed. This is the types of engagements that we can do. Now, really the first part of internal audit start, which is preparing a risk-based internal audit plan. So that is unit 4 all about. How do we prepare a risk-based internal audit plan? What is the importance of it? Is that is what we are going to understand in unit 4. And then once we have the internal audit plan in place, we start an engagement. For starting the engagement, how do we do engagement planning? How do we define the engagement, do the pre-assessment? How do we define engagement objectives? That is in unit 5. Unit 6 is all about how do we perform engagement? What are the engagement procedures we need to perform? What do we do for staffing? How do we develop a work program to perform an engagement? So that's unit 5 and unit 6, which is mostly around the engagement planning part of it, which is section 2. Then we have, once we have planned the engagement, now we will go kick off the meeting. We'll gather the information. We'll do sampling. We'll analyze the information. We'll evaluate. We'll document. Everything happens like we do practically in internal audit. That's all about sections unit 7 to unit 9. And finally, once we have completed sort of engagement, then how do we communicate results? At what interval we should communicate results? Whom should we communicate? What should be the form of communication? All of that is something. And once we have communicated, how do we follow up on the audit findings? How do we see that, okay, the actions have been taken or not? That's in the unit 10. So if I have to put it this way, is it that exactly what we do in the practical internal audit world? Yes, we prepare RBIA, we do engagement planning, we kick off the engagement, we gather the information, we perform sampling, we analyze the information, and then evaluate and then publish the results. Is that what we do? Yes or no? Yes. Yeah. Everyone, yes, or no? Yes. Correct.
Yes.
So exactly
Yes.
that's the reason it's called practice of internal auditing. So everyone else who is new to the internal audit domain, please understand this is the exact internal audit methodology that we follow. Someone in your career or someone who is asking you be it your client or be it your industry, in your interviews or anywhere, if you're new to internal audit domain, this is the internal audit methodology. We do the RBIA. How do we do the RBIA? There are a lot of things to understand in that. We'll cover that. So we prepare an RBIA, we get into the engagement planning. During the engagement planning, we do a lot of exercise again. Once we know that, okay, these are the engagements that we need to start, we gather the information or kick it off and gather the information, do sampling, and all. This is exactly the internal audit methodology that we follow. Okay, so that's all about the 4 sections, folks. Section 1, it's 20% weightage. Section 2, which is engagement planning in itself. If you see, section 2 is actually only unit 5 and unit 6, which is 20% weightage, which means in the examination, you will see a lot of questions coming from this topic, unit 5 and unit 6. And then section 3 is all about unit 7 to unit 9, apart from sampling, a little bit tricky. Unit 7 and unit 9 is quite easy and quite scoring as a units in itself. So again, a good units to understand a lot of important things as an internal auditor, and then pick it up from there for scoring well in the exam. And the last one, unit 10, again, a very, very simple unit, but again, very few important critical points to be remembered for examination. But again, a good unit to understand that as a chief audit executive, what is your roles and responsibilities? As an internal audit team members, what are our roles and responsibilities? Whom should we inform? What time we should inform? Everything we'll understand in unit 10, which is all about communicating. Is that clear? Are you all clear about the different units and different sections that are going to be covered in the part 2? Is that clear for everyone? Any queries? I'll take a quick pause here. Are we all good?
Yes.
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 All right, wonderful.
Yes.
So now let me share some perspective on the unit 1 that we are going to study today. And of course, before jumping into it, we will set up a foundation which will pick from the part 1. What are the important things that we should know, we should remember? All those who have already cleared, please feel free to add. All those who have not cleared, still going to appear, take it as your quick revision. And all those who are getting into the part 2, it's very important to understand every word that is written on the content. Okay, it's all about the concept clarity that is going to be important for clearing this exam. So we'll understand everything conceptually. Okay, so unit 1, as I said, what is unit 1? Can you all say that together with me? We are starting with section. Can you all say that together with me? Section 1 is?
Managing the internal audit
We are
activity.
talking about managing the internal audit activity. We are starting with the unit 1. Unit 1 is what? Can you all say that together? Unit 1 is
Internal audit
Audit operations.
operations.
all right, wonderful. So under the unit 1 now we have 5 subunits. Okay, we are so as it says internal audit operations, we are going to talk about introduction to internal auditing. We are going to talk about internal auditor administrative activities. We are going to talk about stakeholders relationships. We are going to talk about internal audit resource requirements, and then we are going to talk about coordination. Okay, now what further we are going to learn in it? Let's try to understand with the help of next 2 slides. When you're going to talk about introduction to internal auditing, we are going to understand what is the nature of work that we can do, what we as internal auditors do, and how does it help organization. So that is the first question that we need to understand, that okay, what kind of work we do and how does it help organization. So that is something that we'll understand today. We'll understand what do we understand by the word reasonable assurance. As an internal auditor, what we do for providing reasonable assurance. We'll understand as a management what they do to provide reasonable assurance. Again, very important to understand that. The third is we'll understand is what are the basic types of internal audit engagements that we do. Normally, we'll understand what is assurance, what is consulting. So we'll understand what are the different types of audit engagements that we can do. And then we'll understand reporting to the senior management, what to report, what sort of reporting happens very precisely. That's about 1.1. 1.2 is internal audit administrative activities. Here we'll understand that very, very important question, folks. This is a very, very important question. A lot of times in the examiner may ask you that when is the internal audit is called as effectively managed, and there will be choice of options. We have to remember those options that we'll study in the class. That okay, when can we say that the internal audit activity is effectively managed? This is something that we are going to learn today. We'll understand that in order to monitor, like in order to have a better administration on the internal audit activity, we should have some set of policies and procedures. So we'll understand the form, content, and review of these policies and procedures to run the internal audit activity. We'll understand a concept about budgeting. We'll understand a bit about HR administration thing, again, which is very important to have people in the team to monitor and execute work, right? So that is all about 1.2. Again, a very important section from examination point of view. Section 2, unit 1.2 is very important for examination, folks. You can take a note of that. Moving on to 1.3, which is stakeholder relationship. Here we are going to understand in this session is which are the key stakeholders with whom internal auditors should maintain strong constructive relationship. We are going to understand that sometimes there is a conflict between what should we report to the CEO, what should we report to the audit committee. The CA has this conflict a lot of times. So how do we avoid this conflict? What CA should do or say CA should recommend to avoid this conflict between the CEO and the audit committee? There's one word that we need to remember, and we have to look for that word given in the examination that option is asked or this question is asked. We'll understand that. We'll understand the role of the audit committee. We'll understand the relationship with management. So that's again 1.3. Some of it is very, very important for examination. Moving on to 1.4. Again, a very, very, very important. Again, in the entire unit 1, unit 2, folks, please take a note. Unit 1, subunit 1.2, subunit 1.4 are very, very important for examination. You can expect some of the direct questions from this unit in the examination. Okay. Unit 1.4 is internal audit resource requirement. Here we are going to understand what is resource management. We'll understand what does appropriate mean and what does sufficient means in resource management. We'll understand to determine sufficiency of resource allocation, what are the factors to be considered. We need to understand what is considered in resource planning. We'll understand when selecting appropriate staff, what CA must consider. All these 3 questions to determine sufficiency, what is considered in resource planning, when selecting appropriate audit staff, what CA must consider. All of these 3 are important. And the key things to remember in case we are outsourcing the internal audit activity, what is something that a CA should consider. So these are some of the important things that are going to be our key learnings in this unit. And the last would be coordination, where we understand the 3 lines model. I have published a 3 lines model. That is something that we're going to understand. We'll understand coordinating our work with other of the internal activity with other service providers. We'll understand what are the criteria to be considered in determining whether to rely on the work of another service provider. And finally, what we should do in coordinating with regulatory oversight bodies. That's all about what we are going to learn in unit 1. I'll take a quick pause here. Are you all clear what we are going to learn?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is
Yes.
see,
Yes, sir.
see, folks, this is very, very important unit to set a base. Okay. As I said, everything that we learn, the best part and the beauty of this program is everything is important. Okay. So if you're talking about unit 1 to unit 10, sometimes you'll see, okay, this is too basic, and you will understand that, okay, no, but it can be asked in the examination. So you cannot leave anything for the exam. You have to understand everything, and you have to understand it conceptually. But
Sure.
now what is the slides all about? All those who have not taken the sessions yet, I'll just throw some light here. Once we have gone through the content, once we have started going through the content, we have to come back on the slides, folks. We have to come back on the slides and see, okay, do we understand nature of work? Do we understand what is reasonable assurance? We need to understand what are the basic types of internal audit engagements. We should understand, okay, when is internal audit activity, when is internal audit activity effectively managed? There are 4 points to it. Okay, do we remember that? Policies and procedures. Okay, these are the 3 important points. Do we remember that? Budgeting, what needs to be considered? Who needs to consider? Whom should we inform? Do we know that? So basically, these two slides is something that you all need to reflect back again and again during your preparation, during your revision, that you all understand it or not. In fact, every session that we do, we move forward. Once we start completing and wrapping up the session or the coverage of the unit, we'll come back and see, do we all understand this or not? Are you getting it? Why these slides are important? These slides are very, very important, folks. These slides give you the complete perspective of important things that you're going to learn in those 20 pages of unit 1. Am I making sense? Is this clear? Are you understanding what is the importance of these slides? I know these are just 2, but are you getting why it is important?
Yes.
This is important for a reason. These slides are for a reason, that you understand what you're getting into, what you're going to learn, what are your key takeaways, and where to focus, what to focus, and whether you are all able to understand it or not. Okay. All right. So can I quickly hear the word yes? Everyone with me? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Only 2 or 3 yes. Shubham, Sumant, Vaibhav,
Yes.
Yes.
Ishwar, everyone, Nitin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. All right. So let's quickly start setting up our quick base on the this is, so the next few slides is all about foundations of internal auditing, folks. This is from the part 1. All those who have already cleared the part 1, feel free to participate. This is more to set your base strong for the part 2. All those who have directly come for the part 2, this will be a quick base for your foundation, to build your foundation of the internal auditing, which will help you to understand everything that is written. And we'll have to understand, as I said, every word is important. Okay, so we'll understand that in the next few slides. All those who are applying to, as I said already, all those who are planning to appear for the part 1, this will be a quick revision for you. And all those who have cleared it, please try to participate for it. So now we are talking about IPPF framework. What is IPPF? Can you all, anyone who can tell me what is IPPF? Anyone? What is IPPF?
International Professional Practice Framework.
International Professional Practice Framework. International Professional Practice Framework we are talking about, folks. This is published by the Institute of Internal Auditors. Yeah, it's an Institute of Internal Auditors that publish IPPF. Now, so now Institute of Internal Auditors strongly push and try to emphasize that every internal auditor should understand what is IPPF all about. Okay. Now, what is IPPF all about? So under the IPPF, we first of all understand what is the mission of internal auditing, what we are trying to do as internal auditors. Okay, so this is something as a foundation thing that we should understand. What is our mission? And this is something which is very important to understand, that, okay, we have to remember some of those things. In fact, if you're all going to appear sometime in the part 1, and you will hear from me in the part 1 sessions also, that a lot of times we talk about mission of internal auditing. So we have to understand and remember those key words, that what is our mission of internal auditing. Okay, so that is something that we are going to understand also. So that is something that we'll understand in IPPF. Then under the IPPF, we have 2 types of guidance. One is mandatory guidance and the second is recommendatory guidance. So what does IPPF contain? If I have to ask you, can you say that together? The IPPF contains 2 types of guidance notes. One is mandatory and the second is recommended. Okay, so there are 2 types of guidance notes. It is mandatory and recommended. Now, under the mandatory guidance, we have 4 important things, and everything is very important, folks. Okay, take a note. Everything is important. Under the mandatory guidance, we have 4 things. Number one is definition of internal auditing. We need to again, okay, let me take a pause here. Let me clarify you. Unless I tell you that, okay, this points needs to be remembered, you don't put more energy to learn it. So you all don't have to learn or memorize anything as such for this exam. You all need to understand it conceptually, first of all. Okay, so we don't have to learn by heart unless I tell you, okay, these are the few points and few sections, you should remember it or you should learn it. Other than that, it's all about concept. So when we say definition of internal auditing or core principles, you will see that, okay, there are 10 core principles. You will understand there are 4 code of ethics. There are 4 types of standards. You don't have to learn all of them. Okay, you don't have to memorize anything. In the examination, it's not going to ask you. All it's going to ask you is a concept. Okay, so again, definition of internal auditing. When I say that, you don't have to memorize the definition of internal auditing for that matter. You need to understand what is definition of internal auditing. Okay, is that clear? Am I making sense?
Yes,
Everyone?
Yes.
So you don't have to memorize. Please be clear.
Yes.
You don't have to memorize anything unless I tell you or I make a point in the things to remember section or somewhere that, okay, please remember this. These are important pointers because in the examination, these pointers can still be asked and the examiner may look only for those 4 options. Okay. So that I'll give you when we move through the session series, I'll try to put those pointers that, okay, please remember this, and that will already be covered in the things to remember section also in the presentation slides. Okay, now coming back on mandatory guidance. So under the mandatory guidance, we have 4 things. Definition of internal auditing, the core principles, the standards, and code of ethics. So what is included in mandatory guidance? Can you all say that together? Under the mandatory guidance, what we have 4 things. What are the 4 things? Can you all say that together? 4 things are
Principles,
Principles,
standard and code of
principles, and code of ethics.
right? So this is something that we'll understand today. Then under the recommended guidance, we have 2 types of guidance note. One is called implementation guidance and the second is called supplemental guidance. So wonderful. So that's IPPF all about. Let's move to so now you all are clear. IPPF contains 2 things. What is it? Can you all, folks, we are going to spend 4 hours together. I want all of you to participate. Please read out with me, learn directly in the class, and keep limited time for revision afterwards. Okay, so we are spending 4 hours of quality time together. Let's learn in the class. Let's participate. Okay, avoid distraction. Just listen, read with me, learn, repeat, so that we after 4 hours it looks like, okay, we have learned in the class itself. Okay, all up with me? Yes, everyone with me?
Yes, sir.
So we'll learn in the class itself. So now again, repeating with me, what are the IPPF contains 2 things. What are those?
Mandatory and
Mandatory
recommended
guidance.
Mandatory guidance. Mandatory
Mandatory and
guidance.
recommended guidance.
Mandatory guidance are 4 things. What is it?
Definition, standard,
Code of ethics.
Code of ethics, right? Perfect. And under the recommended guidance, we have
implementary guidance, and
supplementary
supplementary guidance.
okay, perfect. Perfect. Moving on now to mission of internal auditing. Okay, so as I said, under the IPPF, the first thing that we are going to talk about was mission of internal auditing. Now, what is mission of internal auditing? What are we talking about as an internal auditor? What is the mission? Okay, what does II say that this is the mission of internal auditing? So, sorry, again, my request is when you're not speaking, keep yourself on mute, please. Yeah. So, mission of internal auditing, folks, we are talking about our mission as an internal auditor is to enhance and protect organizational value. Okay. So what is it? The key word as a mission of internal auditor is, can you all say that together? Our mission is to enhance and protect organization value. Very, very important is enhance and protect.
Enhance and protect organization value.
Wonderful. So how do we do that now? How do we enhance organizational value? How do we enhance and protect organization value? So the key expectation is that we provide a risk-based, objective assurance, advice, and insight. So everything that we do is basically around the risk factor, right? So that's why we are internal auditors. We normally take assurance and consulting engagements, and we provide risk-based assurance and consulting services. So what do? We normally do a risk-based assurance and consulting services.
An objective assurance.
Right. Wonderful. What is the objective? We'll understand that later. But at this point of time, can you all say that together? What is mission? The keyword is to enhance
and protect organizational value.
How do we do that?
By
Objective assurance,
advice, and insight. Okay, so here when we talk about objective assurance, advice, and insight, so assurance is where we are giving an assurance to the management which is assurance services. Advice and insight is more consultative in nature. Okay, so that's why it's called advice and insight. So normally when we talk about different types of engagements that we can do, we do assurance and consulting services. Assurance is where we are expressing an opinion, we are giving that, okay, whether things are going fine or not as per the set criteria. That could be the standards, that could be the policies and procedures of the company, that could be the best practices, whatever it is. And then we can do different set of assignments, which could be consulting in nature, where it is advice and insight. So it's basically, that's where the mission comes. It is, our mission is to enhance and protect organization value. How do we achieve that? By providing risk-based objective assurance, advice and insight. Okay, clear everyone? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to the next, that facilitating the achievement of this mission is the IPPF. So IPPF, if it is basically understood that if IPPF is followed, and the reason it is, while you will see and understand that, okay, it's just a word that we are saying IPPF, but trust me, everything that we study in the entire CIA as a session series, everything gets covered eventually under the IPPF. The reason I'm saying is that because it is covering the definition, it's covering the core principles, it's talking about the code of ethics, it's talking about the standards also. So all about part 1 and part 2, we'll understand different standards. So again, if you're able to accomplish IPPF, then of course, what we're trying to do in mission, we will be able to achieve that. So that's why it says that facilitating the achievement of this mission is IPPF. Okay, is that clear? Are you all clear with mission? Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, definition of internal auditing. Can I request anyone, any volunteer who would like to take a quick read on definition of internal auditing, and then we'll emphasize on it. Can I have a volunteer who would like to read definition of internal auditing quickly? Please call out your name and go ahead. Harsh, please go ahead.
Okay, sir. It's internal auditing is an independent, objective assurance consulting activity designed to add value and improve an organization operations. It helps an organization accomplish its objectives by bringing a systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of risk management, control, and governance process.
Wonderful. Thank you, Harsh. So, folks, definition of internal auditing, as I said, you don't have to learn, but you have to understand all the important words now. So if you read it carefully, it says internal auditing is what? It's an independent, objective, assurance and consulting activity designed to add value and improve organization operations. Let's read it till here. Every word that is mentioned, independent, objective, assurance, consulting, these are the 4 words that we need to understand, and we'll understand that. Okay, so what are the 4 words, 4 key words so far under the definition? We are talking about independent. That internal auditing has to be independent. It has to be objective. Assurance and consulting activities, which means these are the 2 activities that we are doing. And one of the most important keyword that you have to look at, that what are we trying to do? Eventually, we are trying to add value. Okay, so one key word that internal auditors are trying to achieve is add value. Okay, so now can you all read it together? The first 3 lines here. Internal auditing is what? It's an independent, objective, assurance and consulting activity
designed to add value and improve in
organization operations. Okay, how do we again help organization accomplish it? By bringing a systemic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of GRC process. So our responsibility is, how do we help and achieve them? Again, providing a risk-based objective assurance and consulting activity. How do we do it? By improving, evaluating it, and improving the GRC process, which is governance, risk management, and control. Again, don't worry, we'll understand what is governance, what is risk management, what is control. So trust me, folks, this entire definition, if I have to put it this way, if all those who have gone through part 1 already, and all those who are coming in the part 2 directly, all that we have mentioned in this definition is exactly all about part 1 as a unit, because we under the unit 2 we actually understand independence and objectivity quite in detail in the part 1. If assurance and consulting services is something that we understand in the part 2. If you go back on the content, if you see here, we talk about assurance engagements and consulting engagements. So while these words looks as individual words, but it has a deep meaning in itself, that okay, when we understand independent, it has a deep meaning that okay, when can we say we are independent? When can we say we are objective, and when we are impairing objectivity? So that is something that we need to understand with these words. This is not just a sentence to learn and memorize. We need to understand that, okay, when can we say we are independent? We need to understand when can we say we are objective? how do we ensure objectivity? What are the factors that may impair objectivity? That is the understanding. That is the level of understanding we need to have for the CIA. Are you all able to understand? So as we move forward and when we start reflecting back on our concepts, we'll start getting that hold. Don't worry about it, but I'm trying to give you this essence that every word that is mentioned, we need to understand. We need to understand what is assurance. We need to understand what is consulting. Make sense now? And that's the approach we are going to follow. All right. So moving on. And as I said, the unit 3, in fact, from unit 3 to unit 6, is all about GRC in the part 1. So we'll understand what is governance, what is risk management, what is control is all about unit 3 to unit 6 in the part 1. Okay. So that's the level of detail that this definition carries. Okay. Any which ways, don't worry. All of those concepts we will build in the part 2 also. So don't worry so that's again important to clear the part 2. You have to have a very strong base there. Is that clear? Are you all clear with definition? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. Moving on to core principles now. There are total 10 core principles. How many core principles, folks? Can you all say that together with me? How many core
10.
principles? There are 10 core principles. Okay. Now, what are those core principles? Can you all
10.
read it together? Can you all read it together? The first core principle is demonstrate.
Demonstrate integrity.
Second is
Demonstrate
demonstrate.
integrity,
competence and due professional care.
Third is
demonstrate competence and due professional care.
Free from
Free from undue influence.
also
Is
independent.
objective and free from
That is
undue
Aligns with the
influence.
strategies, objectives, and risk of the organization. Is
Aligned with
appropriately
the strategy,
positioned and
objectives, and
adequately
risk of
resourced.
the organization.
Demonstrate quality and continuous improvement. Communicate effectively. Provide risk-based assurance. Is insightful, proactive, and future-focused. Promotes organizational improvement.
wonderful. So folks, again, the core principles in itself is, it says that, okay, we as employers should demonstrate integrity in what we are doing. Okay. So what is integrity? Again, that is something that we're going to understand. We should demonstrate competence in what we are doing. We should do our work, be it assurance or be it consulting, with a due professional care. Okay. We should not do our work with some fatigue, or we should not do our work with undue professional care. We should do and complete our work with due professional care. We should be objective and free from undue influence. We should be independent in the work that we are doing. It should not be influenced by someone, because if someone is influencing it, we may not be able to kind of deliver or may give an adequate right set of transparent reporting to the stakeholders. Then our work should align with the organization strategies objectives. It should not be that, okay, we are working with a separate objective and organization has its own different objective. So our risk, our strategy, our objectives as an internal audit risk, internal audit objectives, internal audit strategies should be aligned to the organization strategies, objectives, and risk. Very important is that internal audit activity as a function should be appropriately positioned. Can anyone tell me what is appropriately positioned means? Anyone who knows that? Anyone who is coming from the part 1 also? What have we understood appropriately positioned?
So it's about dual reporting system.
Dual reporting relationship. What is dual reporting relationship? Can anyone say that? Please call out your name, folks. Please call out your name.
It's to reporting to the audit committee and your admin reporting to the CEO or MD.
Right. So okay.
Number
So
one
reporting
is
to the audit committee and reporting to the CEO. Wonderful. So wonderful. So what sort of reporting to the CEO and what sort of reporting to the audit committee?
Administrative reporting to the
Functional
CEO
and
and functional
administrative
reporting to the board.
CISO.
No, C-suits, CEO.
Okay, CEO. Okay. So
Functional
what did you
reporting
say?
to the
Functional
board.
reporting to the CISO,
Functional reporting to board. BOD.
functional reporting to the board, and administrative reporting to the CEO. Wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. So that is something that we need to remember, folks. When can we say that the CA is appropriately positioned? When can we say that the internal audit activity is appropriately positioned? What will be your answer? Your answer is that when the CAE has direct access to the board. And how does that get achieved? By having a dual reporting relationship. What is dual reporting relationship? Functionally to the board, administratively to the CEO. Is that clear, everyone? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that is appropriately positioned and then adequately resourced. So we should have sufficient resources to deliver our services. Then 6th point is demonstrate quality and continuous improvement. So again, whatever we do, we should demonstrate quality in our work. and we should continuously improve our skill set and our work deliverables. We should communicate effectively as employers. We should provide risk-based assurance. We should provide insights. We should be proactive and future-focused, and we should promote organization improvement. All clear? All the 10 core principles clear, everyone? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, all right. So I'll come back on the note later. Let's move to the standards now. There are 4 types of standards, folks. How many types of standards? Can you all say that together?
4.
4 types of standards. Now, the 4 types of standards, and this is again very important for you all to understand. Sorry, there's some disturbance. Can you all keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking? Please, my request is, please let's follow the protocols, folks. So there are how many types of standards? Can you all say that together? How many types of standards?
4
4
standards.
standards.
So the first one is attribute standard. The second is performance standard. The third is interpretation, and the fourth is implementation. So can you all say that together? What are the 4 types of standards?
Attribute standard, performance standard,
performance standards, interpretation standards, implementation standard.
So now, what is attribute standard? Let's try to understand that. Anyone who is part of the part 1 also? Anyone? We have already understood this. What is attribute standards? Sorry, there's some disturbance, or am I loud and clear, everyone?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is attribute standard? Anyone? Quickly, folks, quickly. What is attribute standard? Anyone who would like to take a chance? Sorry, someone is, looks like someone is speaking, but the voice is not clear. But I don't know if it is echoing. Okay, yeah, please go ahead. Navneet, you want to go ahead?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Govern the responsibilities, attitudes, and actions of the organization's internal activity and the people who serve as internal auditors.
Okay, so good. So what does this mean? Anyone who understood what does attribute standard means? Again, we have to understand everything. So what does it mean? What does govern the responsibilities, attitudes, and actions of the organization, internal audit activity, and the people who serve as employers mean? Anyone who understood this?
Hi, I would like to
actually activity performed by auditor, so that basically qualify that a statement for attribute a standard.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. Krusha, you want to go ahead?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Actually, this standard describes the characteristics of the organization and parties providing the internal audit service.
Perfect. Very good. Okay, let's try to. Okay, can I quickly hear the word yes from everyone? This is very important to set the base. Can I quickly hear the word yes from everyone? We'll have a look on what are these attribute standards.
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes.
So let's take a look on attribute standard, folks. First of all, how many attribute standards? Again, you don't have to remember these things, but as a internal auditor, you should know this, that there are total 19 attribute standards, there are total 33 performance standards. You should know this. Okay. So how many attribute standards? Total 19. Okay. So now let's have a look on what these attribute standards are so that you can understand it, and then let's read that definition. Let's read out that content, that what is it trying to say. So attribute standard basically tells about what is the purpose of employment activity, what kind of authority do we have, what is our responsibility as employers. It talks about independence and objectivity. So it talks about organization independence. It talks about individual level objectivity that needs to be ensured by the employers. It talks about CA role as direct interaction with the board. It talks about individual internal auditors, and collectively as a team, we should possess knowledge collectively to kind of deliver our work. Okay, it talks about individually and as a team, we should take due professional care when we are delivering the services, right? So it basically is what it's basically is telling that what are the characteristics that internal audit team members who are serving internal audit activity should have. It is also talking about what are the attitudes and behaviors expected out of the internal audit activity as a function. Am I making sense now? If you read down this, it talks about governs the responsibilities, attitudes, and actions of the organization internal audit activity. So basically, when it talks about attitudes, actions of the organization internal audit activity, it's talking about, okay, people should and if you read the last line, it says, and the people who serve as employers. So it's basically talking about the characteristics, what Grosha has also mentioned, the characteristics that the internal audit service providers should have. They should be proficient. They should be competent. The team should be competent. They should take due professional care in the services that they're doing. All of that is part of attribute standards. Is it making sense now?
Yes, sir.
Yes. It also talks about the QIP, entire QIP program. So it talks about quality assurance and improvement program as an internal audit activity function. It talks about whether the internal audit activity as a function and the individual internal auditors are compliant to the code of ethics and the standards and everything. So that is all in the attribute standards. Okay. Is that clear? Is that clear, folks? Can you now read it together?
So,
What is
sir,
attribute standards? Yeah, please go ahead, Komal.
Yeah, so sir, can we say in short that what is expected out of the internal auditors is just the attribute standard, yeah?
So I would put it that, see, performance standard will also talk about a bit about it. I think we should look at, because performance standard, if you, so let's cover that and then we'll try to understand a bit more on the difference. See, performance standards talk about the nature of internal auditing activity that we do. And it gives a performance criteria to evaluate whether the internal auditors have done things properly or not. Okay, so let's take a look on what are the performance standards. So performance standards talk about everything that, okay, what are the different types of engagements that we do? So that covers under the nature of work, that is assurance engagement, consulting engagement, and things like that. And then it talks about everything that we do practically on internal audit side. So as I said, engagement planning, communicating, gathering the information, sampling, analyzing, everything that we do. So whether we have done all those things properly or not, whether we have communicated properly or not, whether we have done the engagement planning properly or not, whether our work program is properly or not, whether our information collection criteria is properly or not, whether the supervision was done properly or not. So these are what? These are so performance standards is basically giving an evaluation criteria of whether the work was done properly or not. Am I making sense? Yes. If you see the nature of the standards, if you read the nature of the standards is such that all of these are something that we do during executing an engagement. So it gives an evaluation criteria. This is what, if you see attribute standards, it talks about proficiency. It talks about due professional care. It talks about independence. It talks about objectivity. It talks about quality. That is what is expected as the attitudes and behaviors of the internal auditors. Am I making sense now? Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So great.
Yes, sir.
So there's some disturbance. Komal, I think there's some disturbance at your end. I'm keeping you on mute. Please take care of this. All right. So moving on, attribute and performance standards. May I request you all to now quite quickly read this. What is attribute standard? Let's talk about it governs the responsibility
and actions of
the organization's internal audit activity for the people who serve as
auditors.
Right. And what is performance? It governs the nature of internal auditing.
auditing.
Provide quality criteria for evaluating the internal audit performance.
Right. So very clear. So attribute standards talking about what is the responsibility, what is the attitudes and actions and behavior expected out of the internal audit activity as a function as an individual internal auditors. Performance standards will tell, okay, what are the types of activities that we do, how do we do that, and it will give us evaluating criteria whether the engagement planning was done properly or not, whether the engagement objectives were defined properly or not, whether the sampling was done properly or not, whether the supervision was done properly or not. So it is giving a quality criteria to evaluate the internal performance. Is that clear? Make sense?
Yes.
Sorry, Arpit, one question. Where we keep the reporting, it would be a attribute standard or performance standard?
So if you see reporting as in communication and communication and reporting is mostly in the performance standard. See, it talks, when we talk about internal audit reporting, it is coming under the performance standard. When we talk about communicating about the QIP program, whether our internal audit activity function as a whole have been able to conform to the standards, have been conformed to the code of ethics, some element of that communication comes even under the QIP, but that's very specific. If we talk about individual internal audit, if we talk about RBIA, all those gets covered under the performance standard. Make sense?
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. So I think we are all clear with attribute standards, performance standards. The third standards is interpretation standard. What is interpretation standards now? See, attribute standards has a statement that is mentioned. Okay, so let's say attribute standard says that the CA should have direct access to the book. That is mentioned in attribute standard. These are very small standards. Okay, this is just a 2 lines, 3 lines, 5 lines standard. Okay, so now let's say the attribute standard says that the CA should have a direct access to the board. It's a one-line statement. Interpretation standard will tell us that when can we say that the CA has direct access to the board? How the CA should have direct access to the board. So it basically says, and it also clarifies the terms, who is CA, who is board, who is the audit committee. So interpretation standard is what? It clarifies the terms and conditions that is mentioned in attribute and performance. So whatever the words, whatever the terms that have been used in attribute and performance standard, interpretation standard clarify those terms and conditions that are mentioned in attribute and performance standards. Is that clear? What is interpretation? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes. So can you all read? Can you all say that together? What is interpretation standard? Interpretation standard clarifies
Clarification for terms and conditions in
attributes
attribute and performance
and
standards.
And performance standards.
All right. So then we have implementation standard, folks. Implementation standards is expand upon other category of standards, which is attribute and performance. It basically tells that, okay, if you want to implement something, then this is how you have to do it. So that is implementation standard. As the word says, it provides requirements applicable to assurance and consulting element. If you want to do some engagement for assurance, this is how you need to do. So you follow implementation standards. It will give you that, okay, this is how you need to do this particular activity. This is the implementation standards. Okay. So in the examination, not for part 2, but for part 1, it can be asked sometimes that, okay, which standard expand upon other category of standards? Is it interpretation, implementation, attribute, performance? Your answer would be implementation standard. Okay.
Standard.
So now for the part 1, we normally focus on attribute standards, but for part 2, we have to focus on performance standards. Okay. So part 1, we've covered all in detail. Again, as I said, who are going to see the part 1 sessions in future, they will understand more in detail about the attribute standards, but part 2 is all about performance standards. In the part 2, we have to focus mostly on the performance standards. Okay. Everyone clear so far? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. So let's move on further. Now, let's say from a performance standard. So as I said, these are the 19 attribute standards. You can have you can look on that. Then we have 33 performance standards, and these are the 33 performance standards. In the unit 1, we have 6 standards to cover. We'll understand managing the internal audit activity. We'll talk about resource engagement. We'll talk about policy and procedure. We'll talk about coordination and reliance. We'll talk about external service provider and organizational responsibility for internal auditing, and we'll talk about nature of work that we do. So these are the 6 performance standards that gets covered in unit 1 of the part 2 that we are going to study. Okay, clear? Everyone clear? Yes?
Yes, sir.
All right. So then these are other remaining performance standards. As we move forward in the part 2, we'll cover all of them. Now moving on to the code of ethics. So there are 4 types of four code of ethics. Can anyone tell me what are the so far we have talked about IPPF. So we are actually focusing on mandatory guidance of IPPF. We have talked about definition. Everyone clear with definition of internal auditing? Can anyone tell me what are the keywords that we have understood in definition? Independent,
independent, objective assurance, consulting,
value, and
value.
Right. So that is what those are the couple of things that we've learned. So then we have talked about core principles, right? So then we have talked about 10 core principles: integrity, objective, independence. We have talked about aligning the organization strategies on objectives, right? So we're talking about and everything about it, right? So those are the key core competencies, core principles. Sorry, those are the core principles that we have understood. Then we have talked about the third thing, which was standards. The third was standards. There are 4 types of standards: attribute, performance, interpretation and implementation. And the last part, what was the last part of the mandatory guidance? Can anyone tell me? Code of ethics. Code of ethics. Now we have 4 code of ethics. Can you all say that together? The 4 code of ethics are, can you all say that together? The first is integrity, confidentiality, and competency, right? Everyone clear? So are you now clear with IPPF? Are you all clear? What is definition? What are the core principles? What are the standards and what are the code of ethics? At least broadly, you all know what is it all about? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
So now let's talk a bit more about the code of ethics. What is the reason of code of ethics? Okay. So what is the reason of code of ethics? Why the code of ethics have been published? What is the primary purpose of it? So the primary purpose of code of ethics is, folks, is to promote ethical culture. Okay, so what is it? Can you all say that together? There could be multiple other purposes of code of ethics, but what is the primary purpose of code of ethics? Can you all say that together? The primary purpose is
to promote an ethical culture.
Right. So when we study in part 1, folks, let me tell you, all those who have directly come for the part 2, and other people who have been in the part 1 can second to that. Sometimes in the examination, examiner can as simple as ask you what is the primary purpose of ethic or of the code of conduct. And there could be as simple as reason that, okay, it's to promote an ethical culture. It's to give a clarity that, okay, you need to do work this way. It may give that, okay, if the code of ethics are violated, you will be penalized. So all of these looks good options in the examination. But what is the primary purpose? What is the keyword that we have understood? The primary purpose is to promote ethical culture. So you have to choose that option in the examination. Okay. So the examiner is confusing you with different options which are possibly good, but you know that, okay, the primary purpose is this. So a lot of times you'll understand that, okay, let's say when we are going to read today, in fact, when we are going to cover and get on that section of the unit 1, there could be various roles of audit committee. I'll give you an example. Let's say, what is the primary role of audit committee? The primary role of the audit committee is to appoint a chief audit executive. The primary role of audit committee is to appoint an external auditor. The primary role of an audit committee is to look on the financial statements before they get signed off. The primary role of the audit committee is to ensure independence of the internal and external auditors. What do you think will be the right option? Do you think everything looks like right? Do you think everything is right? Appointing a chief audit executive will be the responsibility of audit committee. Appointing a statutory auditor of the company, very critical, right? Will be the responsibility of the audit committee. Looking out on the findings and the financials that have been published by internal auditors and the external auditors will be an important. And the responsibility to ensure independence is again the responsibility of the audit committee. Looks all look good, right? In the exam. But you have to know that, okay, the primary role of the audit committee is this. Beyond all the other options, I'll choose this. That is the way of learning and understanding for the CI exam. Okay, is that clear? So the answer for that is
independence and objectivity.
Independence is the most important. Dilip is saying his concept of wording is also important. Concept is very important. Sometimes even the wording is also important. So both of it is important, right? So I'm not clear. Dilip, would you like to open up a bit and let me know what exactly is the query? Is concept of wording is also important? What are you trying to ask?
Right, Arpit. See, question is that since you say that there's a primary purpose is to promote a ethical culture. So that wording, like we say that, declare that ethical culture is the word which is very important. But in concept, it declares that our objective is basically promoting a value system, correct?
Right.
So the wording also is important, or that ethical culture, this option may be ethical culture 1, or maybe second option could be also like value system carrying. This is how I'm just trying to correlate that part.
In such questions, normally, Dilip, when we'll practice a lot of MCQs right in the session, so we'll try to understand with various options that are given. But to be honest, in these kind of scenarios, sometimes we go with more generic and more overall word that covers the majority of the part. Like if you say, if we have the same word, we'll probably go for that. But sometimes in the examiner may give you a little bit more generic word. Okay. So in that case, we may go with that also. So that all depends on what is the question and what are the options. But as I said, so first would be, let's say if you have a direct option coming in, we'll go with that. Okay. The second is, let's say if we will understand the other option, what is it trying to give? If it is as the second preference would be on the concept that, okay, we'll see that, okay, this is generalized, this is making sense and can be considered similarly to what we have understood. We'll go with that option.
Actually, in a question, what it comes, what is the generally, the best possible, best options of among this, what is the best possible answers? So I'm just trying to correlate that parameters from.
No, I completely get it. I completely get it. So as I said, sometimes it may come as direct. So in that case, if it is coming similar to direct, so we'll go with that. If it is giving you more generalized options, again, we'll have to look at the question. What is the purpose of the question? And we can go with that. So both of it is important. So I'll not say wording is more important, and I'll not say the concept is important. So you are giving me difficult answer now, difficult option actually.
So is it likely then? It's likely options then.
Right.
Thank you so much.
We'll have to consider both, right? Okay.
Right, Arpit.
All right. So what is the reason? So can you all say that together? What is the primary purpose of Code of Ethics? Can you all read it together? The primary purpose is to
promote an ethical culture
among professionals who serve us. So apart from the primary purpose, there are additional functions of the Code of Ethical Conduct for a professional organization include communicating acceptable values to all members. So once we have the code of ethics that, okay, this is what we need to do, or this we need to follow. So of course, the other things that code of ethics provide is communicating acceptable value to all members, establishing objective standards against which individuals can measure their performance, and communicating the organization values to even outsiders. So can you all say that together? What are the additional functions of the code of ethical conduct?
Communicating acceptable values to all members, establishing objective standards against which individuals can measure their performance, and communicating the organization's value to outsiders.
Wonderful. I can hear only 3 or 4 voices. So before we proceed further, can I quickly hear the word yes from everyone? Are you all with me? Amruta, are you with us? Ashwin?
Yes.
Yes.
Rashid, Ishwar, Govardhan, are you with us? Gurusha?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah. Lalit, are you with us?
Yes.
Audit, Mitlesh, Mustafa, Neha?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we have understood what is the reason for code of conduct. Now understand the aspects of code of ethical conduct. So what are the aspects of code of ethical conduct? So existence of code of conduct. So some of the important aspects, folks, 3 important aspects of code of ethical conduct. If we say that, okay, there are code of ethics written in the organization, can we say that, okay, it is being followed, and it is trustworthy? By just having mere existence of code of ethic conduct as a document, can say that, okay, it is trustworthy and it is working and it is applied?
No, sir.
No.
So the first aspect is existence of a code does not ensure that its principles are followed or trustworthy. Okay. So can you all say that together? The first aspect is existence of
a code does not ensure that its principles are followed or trustworthy.
The second aspect is, do you think all of us, there are 30 plus of us together, do you think that every one of us can be equally competent?
No, sir.
No. The second important is, it is impossible to require equality of competence by all the members of a profession. Okay. So can you all say it together? The second is, it is impossible
to require equality of competence by all the members of a profession.
Very, very important to make organization code of ethical conduct more better. It should provide for disciplinary action for violation. So what should code of ethics provide? Can you all say that together?
The code should provide for disciplinary action for
violation. Okay. Sometimes we also understand that whom are these code of ethics applicable to? Is it only applicable to the CIAs who are pursuing CIAs, or who are the members of IA? The answer is yes or no? The answer is no. So the code of ethics apply to anyone who is practicing internal audit. Okay. Yes. Anyone who is in it. So can you all say that together? What is the applicability? The provisions of the codes are applied broadly to all organizations and persons who perform internal services,
not just CIAs and members of the IIA.
Right? And violation of rules of ethics should be reported to the
IIA.
Board of Directors.
So then what are the components in code of ethics? So it talks about code of ethics extend beyond the definition and include 2 essential components: the principles and the rules of conduct. So principles are nothing. Principles are the 4 code of ethics in itself: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, competency. And rules of conduct are nothing. These are behavioral norms expected of internal auditors. These rules of conduct are part of my these are part of my principles. So folks, let's make it simple. Basically, integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, competency, these are the principles. If you say these are also code of ethics, these are also the principles. And the rules of conduct is these bullets are the rules of conduct. Make sense? Are you all clear? Yes?
Yes.
All right. Moving on, some more time, folks, some more time to set our foundation strong, and then we'll move to the unit 1. So let's start with the code of ethics. Understand the 4 code of ethics: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, competency. Very, very important to set our base right. What is integrity all about? What is integrity? We as employers should perform work. Can you remember the first core principle we have talked about? What was the first core principle? Demonstrate
honesty.
Integrity.
Demonstrate integrity, right? So if we come back on the core principles, folks, what was the first core principle?
Demonstrate integrity.
Demonstrate integrity, right? So now we are going to understand what is integrity. So what is integrity? Integrity, 2 keywords of what is integrity all about is, we should refuse to compromise with professional values. And the second is, performance of professional duty should be in accordance with the relevant laws. So can you all say that together? Under the integrity,
refusal to compromise professional values, performance of professional duties in accordance with relevant laws.
Right. Now, under the rules of conduct, we're talking about 3 important things. As an internal auditor, we should perform work with honesty, diligence, and responsibility. We should make disclosures expected by the law. We should not knowingly become a party to an illegal act or engage in an act discreditable to the profession. So, what are the 3 rules of conduct? Can you all say that together? The 3 rules of conduct under integrity are
performing work with honesty, diligence, and responsibility, making disclosure expected by the law, not knowingly become a party to an illegal act, and act discreditable to the profession.
Right. So sometimes we let's say folks, it could be a situation that, let's say for example, that you are at a particular plant, and let's say you are seeing that there are child laborers working there, and or there is a illegal act going on at the plant site. Okay, it could be environmental non-compliance and stuff. Let's say you're not reporting that to the not reporting or disclosing it. So in that case, you may become a party to an illegal act. Okay, you're not intimating it. So in that case, it may impact integrity. Okay, so that is not, we should not knowingly become a party to an illegal act. Okay, unknowingly is a different thing. We know that there is an unethical practice being followed. We should not become a party to that act. Okay, and we should not pass discreditable comments or discreditable impacts to the profession. So let's say we should not lie that we are competent. Okay, we should not lie that, okay, we are, let's say, qualified. Sorry, there's some disturbance.
That time I'll call you. Right. Sure.
Sorry, my request is please keep yourself on mute if you're not speaking. Are you all with me? Can I quickly hear the word yes?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Krusha, please go ahead. Krusha, please go ahead. All right. So Krusha is saying, I have a question. Can I ask? Krusha, you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible now. Please go ahead.
Yeah. I have a question in this integrity point. There's written that making disclosure expected by the law. Now, I was going through certain MCQs while going through the recorded sessions of part 1. There were the options given, in such cases, the auditor will report to the senior management or board, or he will directly report or disclose it to the law, like the regulatory authorities.
Right.
So, as per my understanding, the internal auditor should, if he finds anything going wrong as per law in the organization, the first responsibility that he should inform it to his the CAE, and then after the law, as he suggests.
No. So Krusha, normally, okay, this is something that we normally set as a base on the part 1. Anything that is going wrong in the company, okay, unless you are very sure that, okay, the top management is involved, then there's a different choice that you can make. And that is something that we'll also understand when we touch upon the last chapter of communicating, okay, in the part 2. But normally anything like that happens, the first thing is, of course, as you said, is, let's say if there is a junior team member or there's a staff auditor who is performing this activity, will come and tell to the supervisor or take it up to the CAE. The second, it would go to the senior management and the board. So it will try to keep it internally. It will not go and start reporting it externally. Okay. So it's not that, okay, without getting an internal validation done, or without getting to see that, okay, we should report internally. See, we are being appointed by the board to inform them, we are not appointed by the regulators to inform to the regulatory authorities. Okay.
Right.
We are working for the organization, right? So our responsibility is to inform to the senior management and the board, for that matter. Let's say the senior management and the board doesn't want to take any action. But let's say the senior management accept that, okay, we don't want to take any action. The second responsibility now comes is we need to understand why are you not taking action. Let's say and again, we need to understand that what is the risk appetite of the company. We say that, okay, the risk appetite of the company says that, okay, we should not accept any non-compliance in the company. Okay. In that case, since the senior management has accepted the risk, okay, we'll continue to be non-compliant. Then we need to go to the board and we need to say that there is a non-compliance. We've taken it up with the senior management. Senior management, this is the view theirs, this is our view, and let board intervene in that period. So our responsibility is not directly to go and inform to the regulatory authority until there is a action which is done something to prevent something which is, let's say there's a violence happening. There is something violence happening which needs to immediately report to the police. So that is something any human being would do. But otherwise, if there is a non-compliance, let's say there is a child laborers going into working in the plant, so it should not be that, okay, I've informed to my CAE, now let's go to the regulators, now labor law, and go and inform them that there are child laborers. We'll inform to the senior management and the board, and they will take the corrective action, right?
Okay, and one more question. There were options given between the, like, if we have been appointed as an external auditor to an organization, and some fraud has been identified, for example, and we have validated that fraud. So, for example, so that fraud first need to be informed to our supervisors or to the organization for which we are conducting the audit.
So see, of course, if the fraud has been assessed, first of all, we will inform to our supervisors. We'll take their inputs. We'll get some sort of comfort that, okay, it is indicating fraud and we have adequate evidence to prove, and then we will recommend investigation. So we'll go and inform to the senior management and the board that, okay, these are the facts and figures that we see which are indicating fraud. This is the basis of saying that, and we'll recommend investigation, or will recommend a forensic piece of it. So that will be our rule.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Makes sense? Good.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So good question, Rusha. So are you all clear with integrity? Yes. So we are talking about that we should perform work with honesty, diligence, and responsibility. We should make adequate disclosures expected by the law, and we should not knowingly become a party to an illegal act or engage in an act discreditable to the profession. Everyone clear? Yes.
Yeah.
Right. The second is objectivity. Very, very important.
Arpit, sorry to interrupt. Just one question here.
Please go ahead.
Even after informing to the board about the illegal activity, if board also denies to take any action, in that case, will the CAE become the part of illegal activity?
No. So let's see. See, normally CAE has the responsibility to inform to the management and the board.
Yeah.
Now let's try to understand what is the CAE responsibility. So normally there's a document which is called internal audit charter, right?
Yeah.
So internal audit charter will provide for that. Okay, what is the purpose of internal audit activity? It talks about what is the authority that the internal audit activity as a function have, and then it also talk about the responsibility of the internal audit activity as a function. What are the responsibilities of the CAE? So that's part of the internal audit charter. Okay. Normally the internal audit charter provides that our responsibility is to inform to the senior management and the board. We should coordinate our work with the regulatory bodies. That is also something that we are going to understand in today's, that, okay, we should coordinate our work. Let's say if we have performed something, we have the work paper study, we can discuss with the regulators, we can share the evidences, we can take their inputs to ensure that, okay, our organization is compliant and guide to the respective team members. So those type of coordination we can do, but it's not our responsibility, again, as I said, to go to the regulators and tell them. Our responsibility is to the management and the board. Now it's our individual prerogative to maybe take it to the regulators. If we want to do it under our individual prerogative, we can do an external whistleblowing, we can do an internal whistleblowing, whatever we want to do it. But that's a separate exercise. That's under the individual. It's an individual prerogative that one needs.
Oh, understood.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. So great, good guys. So moving on now to a very important term, that is objectivity. Can you go back on the definition of internal auditing? What was the keyword? Internal audit activity has to be independent and objective, right? Objective. So that is what we have learned, right? Yes or no? So now we are going to understand what is objectivity. So objectivity, the two words are that what we should provide stakeholders with unbiased information. And the second is we should be independent from conflict of interest. So can you all say that together? What are two important words in objectivity? Can you all say that together?
Stakeholder with unbiased
information, and the second is
independence from the conflict of interest.
We should avoid conflict of interest. Okay. Now, three important rule of conduct under objectivity. We should not participate in any activity or relationship that may impair or be presumed to impair their unbiased assessment. Shall not accept anything that may impair or presume to impair their professional judgment. Shall disclose all material facts known to them that, if not disclosed, may distort the reporting of activities under review. Can you all say that together? The first one is, can you all say that together? What are the rule of conduct? The first one is
not participate in any activity or relationship that may impair or presume to be
impair and biased
assessment.
Shall not accept
anything that
may impair or be presumed to professional judgment. Shall disclose all material facts
known to them.
May distort
Not disclosed may distort the reporting of activities under review.
So what is impair? What is presumed to impair? Can anyone throw some light? I want Ankita Sharma and Mudit. Why are you all not participating? You all know the concept. You've cleared the part 1. I can't hear you all. I want more participation from you folks at least.
Yeah, just because it's a repeat lecture, we are a little backward.
No, so you don't have to repeat. You have to come front and you have to participate more. Yeah, you have to share your insights more to the to others also. Clear the exam.
Sure.
Ankita is still traveling. Okay, great. So yeah. So what was impaired and presumed to impair? Mudit, you would like to share? I will ask direct questions now.
Impaired and assumed. Impairment is like, where there is an issue in objectivity is impaired or independence is impaired, and presumed to impair is not impaired, but in a condition of that. So something like that.
Okay, no worries. So folks, anyone else who would like to try on what is impairment and presumed to impair?
Can I say?
Yeah, please go ahead. Just call out your name one by one. Please go ahead.
Shivak on this side.
Please go ahead, Shivak.
So impaired means whether the direct interaction with your objective, where your objective are directly getting hampered, and presumed to be impaired means where there are circumstances which may make your objective as getting hampered.
Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Very good. Please go ahead, Shubham.
Yeah, I'll just give an example. If I have a relative working in any company and I'm performing internal audit activity, I'm definitely have an impaired objectivity. Okay, I won't be able to identify any observation for them. Presumed to impair, if I have received any gift from any of the folks in the company for which I'm performing internal audit activity, my objectivity may get hampered. So,
okay,
this is my 2 cents.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Anyone else?
Yeah, Jagdish here. So,
Jagdish, please go ahead.
Yes. So direct impairment means is that, the auditor, receiving some gift and not disclosing any important information in their audit report. And if we talk about presumed, so maybe he has some, vast interest, like any relative of the auditor who is, partner or maybe, the key stakeholders in that particular company, despite that he is disclosing all this information in his audit report.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to give a try? Impair and presume to impair?
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead, Rosha.
Impairment and presumed to impairment, I'll explain it with an example. Like if I have a stock investment in that particular organization, so I would be before doing an audit for that organization, I would be asked to sell off those stock before doing an audit, because it will be considered as an presumption to an impairment, because of having a stock of those that organization, it will be considered as an presumed to impair of objectivity.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, great. I think mostly what all you have said, everyone, Shubham, Gursha, Jagdish, everyone, what you have said is absolutely correct. Let me just throw a little bit more light. So see, objectivity, when we talk about impairment or presumed to impair, what we are trying to say. So like one of you have given an example that, let's say there is a relative working in the company, there will be a conflict of interest. So one is that it can be an absolute impairment. That means that, okay, I go there and due to that conflict of interest or due to that relationship, the work has not been performed with objectivity, which means that the person is impaired it. The second aspect of it, let's say the person goes there, perform like any internal auditors goes there, perform the work with proper due diligence and professional care, have all the right samples done, set the objectives done. There are critical observations that have been highlighted by the auditor. Still it can be called as presumed to impair. Are you getting it? Because presumed to impair is what? Presumed to impair means that people are looking at this, and you can say that people are looking at this and they can still feel that, okay, there could be presumed to impair. Let's say if let's take another example. Let's take another example that I have published the audit report, and after 6 months down the line, or after 1 year down the line, I have gotten I've got a gift from the auditee. Okay, now let's say if I have accepted after 6 months or after 1 year, after the reports have been published, should I still accept the gift? The answer is no, because one is that it is not allowed as per the code of ethics. The second is it will still reflect as presumed to impair. Are you getting it? What I'm trying to say?
Yes.
I'm trying to say that presumed to impair means that people and people can tend to understand that, okay, if the person has accepted it, there could be a impairment that may be there. It is presumed to be impaired. So as I'm saying that, okay, despite there is a conflict of interest being there, it may be still there that, okay, the person who is the employer have went ahead and performed the duty with all the due diligence, have highlighted critically all the observations, but still it can be presumed to impair because there was a relationship with the auditee, or there was a conflict of interest already. So that's like presumed to impair. Does that make sense now? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So that's all about objectivity. Understand with a lot of examples that when can we say that we are impairing the objectivity in the next slide. But at this point of time, let's take that as a note. So we as employers should not participate in any activity or relationship that may impair or presume to impair. We should not accept anything which is like a gift that may impair or presume to share or presume to impair. And the third is we should disclose all the material facts known to us during the audit that, if not disclosed, may distort the reporting of activities under review. So let's say if we know that there is a fraud that is going on, and if we have not disclosed, then we are impairing the objectivity. Is that clear? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
All right. So, Drusha, go ahead. If you want to ask something, go ahead. No worries.
Yeah, hi. This is one question which I have experienced practically, though I never worked as an internal auditor in the company. We had external auditors which were coming to our organization quarterly, and they were doing audit. Now, since there were one person who was not very competent on that, I'm a hotel finance professional, so he came to do an audit for a hotel, and that was his first assignment for an hotel. So to have a adequate knowledge or a good knowledge, the auditor offered me a gift so that he gets a good knowledge, and I'm like he gets. I hope you understand that he offered me a gift so that he gets a proper knowledge of the organization. How does it work? Because being an organization and a finance person, I would not like an auditor to take out a lot of points for my section or my organization, which will come directly coming to me as a question. So I'm asking this on a very practical scenario. So what that particular thing, what it will be considered? Is it going to be impairment to objectivity for him?
See, normally it's a vice versa to call out as an objectivity impairment where the auditor is accepting the gift, right? Because then the auditor may not be giving the adequate information, or maybe giving a biased information for that matter. But let's say when we understand the objectivity as a term, a lot of times we understand that there are various threats to objectivity, even as simple as the word like familiarity. So familiarity is also a threat to objectivity. Let's say the same person is coming again and again for the 5 years for audit in your company, for your division. That can also impair objectivity. So if the person is trying to get into is trying to build a relationship for that can bias his area of work or reporting, then it will call as impairment of objectivity. If the person has offered a gift for the adequate knowledge, and if it is not impairing it for any reason, so I still feel that it may not impair the objectivity, but ideally the person should not do that. And see, normally from this is more of a point of a competency issue, if you see. Okay.
Yeah.
So competency is something that we look at as a collective team input. Okay. So competency is something that we look at that as a team of internal auditor from a code of ethics standpoint of view, that as a team, people should have adequate knowledge of that industry, of that particular area of work. It is not an individual attribute, it's a team output. So let's say if there are 5 team members who are doing an ITGC audit, let's say one person, even if the person doesn't have knowledge, but as a team, if they have knowledge, if there's adequate supervision being done, it's okay. It's not violating anything. But let's say as a team, or as let's say the supervisor, let's say the auditor both of them doesn't have the competence to execute and still the assignment have been accepted, in that case, it is getting violated. So that is how we have to see it. So answering your question, Rusha, in my view, if the person has given a gift and just trying to acquire the knowledge, I'm still saying that it depends on what sort of gift or not. But all I'm trying to say is that, see, unless it's leading him to be in a biased position to report, in that case, it's getting objectivity. If it is a just mere knowledge issue, then first is that, okay, if the person is competent, if it's the only person coming on the field, then it is a competency violation, not an objectivity violation. But as I said, we have to link it for the next case. If you're able to influence the person to not report, in that case, it will impair his objectivity, his or her objectivity.
All right. Thank you.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
Yeah,
Neha
please
this
go
side. Sir, I have a question. Can I ask?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So if the employer says that you have a limit of 7,000 for a particular client and you have a limit of 5,000 for a government client, so for XX amount of limit of accepting gifts is given by the company, then if he or she accepts the gift which is below that XX amount, is it okay or is it still a breach?
So you're saying the auditor has the guidelining document from the company. That there is an organization policy that you can accept these sort of gifts at this much of value.
Yeah, and I mean the entire detailed terms and conditions are given that it should not be of silver, or you might accept a lunch or dinner, something of that sort.
In that case, see, these kind of things will be accepted. So this is not a objectivity issue. So anything that is not of material value, anything that is not specific to a person, it's more for a general to public. So those will not get impaired.
So for example, if you go for a tea garden audit and they give you tea bags, so which also comes under the XX amount, so that is okay.
If there is an organization policy, you can say it's okay.
Okay.
Provided there's an organization policy that allows you to accept that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Otherwise, anything of material value should not be. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great. Navneet, please go ahead.
Sir, what's the basic difference between the two, the first one and the second one? Because in both the cases, as we are in first one also, we are saying not participate in any activity, and the second one not to accept anything. So,
yeah, so
an activity also.
Basically, the first thing is more talking about not participate in any activity. Let's say you don't accept that engagement in a way that you don't participate and go ahead and do an engagement where you have a relative in place. Okay, so there's a conflict of interest already in place, so you should not participate in that activity. Not accept is precisely accepting the gift related matters. So it's more about not accepting a gift, not accepting a fee, not accepting a commission, kind of a thing that is under the not accepting.
Okay, and what about the assessment and judgment? I mean, unbiased assessment. So, will it covers the whole activity we have done so far? And in professional judgment is what we have just give in our reporting.
No. So if you see, no. So it's basically both of things are similar. So unbiased assessment is again that whatever as an employee we are doing, whatever we are trying to assess, it should be unbiased. And again, our professional judgment, whatever, again, that's all part of the assessment. That's all part of the audit that we are doing. Again, that should be that should not be impaired. So it's almost the same thing. It's like you can take it as an overall factor. It's just that the first point is talking about not participating in that activity, and the second is not accepting a gift, fee, commission, or sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what if we just we haven't received any such gift, or we don't have any such relative in that company, but what happens sometimes we just do audit and some of the material things, because on the basis we do audit on the basis of some sampling, right? And sometimes it happens that we didn't what I say that recognize, or we said that we haven't noticed any such thing which is material in nature, and we haven't reported that. And in future,
okay, so if it is not material and you have done the work with due diligence and professional care, there are adequate coverage, the engagement objectives achieved, you have covered the adequate coverage, you have the adequate work papers in place, then it will not impair any objectivity. But let's take another example, and which is very interesting that you have brought in. Let's say the last year you have done an audit. Last year you have done an audit, let's say of procurement area, or let's say of export operations of the company. and you, despite doing a detailed audit, you noted that there was no observation. This year, again, that audit was given to you. And because last year you have not identified any audit observation, you believe that everything is going still well. In that case, you're impairing the objectivity. Just saying that everything is going fine based on your previous experience is going to impair objectivity.
Right, we have to just complete the assessment again.
We still have to go ahead. We still have to ensure that okay, things are for the next audit period. Also, the things are going on just based on previous year's experience. You cannot say that okay, everything is still believe that it's going correct. Okay.
Okay.
Makes sense. Sumant is asking where a company itself as an internal team versus the company appointed outsiders to perform IA, where the impairment and objectivity looks more compromised. I'm not clear with the question, Sumant. You're saying where a company itself as an employed team, okay, versus the company appointed auditors to perform IA, where the impairment and objectivity looks more compromised. So it depends on all situation to situation. See, company itself as an employed team, it has its own benefits. I cannot say that okay, company has its own internal team is a wrong thing. A lot of organizations prefer that. A company appointed outsiders, again, there could be a relative again. If that is the case, it may impair objectivity also. So you cannot conclude just that, okay, there is an internal audit function in the company that may impair more objectivity, or there's an external auditor appointed that may impair objectivity. Normally, the external auditor may ensure some sort of more independence, but at the same time, just by this, we cannot conclude it. Okay.
Sir, Rakesh this side. I have a doubt. Sir, for example, if my company policy and my IAS standards is conflicting, so what should be my stand?
Whichever is more critical, whichever is more rigorous, whichever is more critical. So so let's say
how will I know which is more critical, sir?
Okay, so I'll tell you. So let's say let's say, for example, IA standard says
I should not take any gift. For example,
yeah, so should not accept any. So, but it does. So it really says not accept any gifts, but it also says that okay, you can
material.
It should not be of material value. There are under the implementation guidance notes. You will understand a little bit more in detail if you read it. That okay, it should not be a special thing. Okay, so that's what we discussed about it. It's not a clear statement. It's not a law. First of all, let's try to understand. It's not a law that is there. It's more generalized concept that we should follow as a practice of internal auditing. Okay, but yes, I say that let's say if there is something that is written in the code of ethics, and or anything for that matter under the IPPF or whatever the guidance note of IA, and there is something which is more rigorous in the jurisdiction, in the law, or if it in the organization, we should follow something that is more rigorous, basically. So something that restricts you more rather. So that is something that you need to look at on case-to-case basis. So let's say, for example, that IA standards doesn't say too much about the retention of the internal audit documentation. It says that, okay, retention of internal document should be based on the internal audit policy. Now, internal audit policy could be anything for various organizations. It doesn't define that, okay, internal documents has to be for 8 years period like that. But let's say there could be a jurisdiction in US which says, okay, you should have the documentation for 15 years. There could be in India for 8 years. So whatever is restricted in whichever area which is more rigorous, you have to follow that. It basically says that. Make sense?
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's move forward. So I think we have covered objectivity. Of course, in the next slide, we'll understand a little bit more about various reasons when can we say that, okay, we are impairing integrity, when we are saying objectivity, confidentiality, and competency. Let's take a look, quick fast forward, right? Moving on to confidentiality, folks. Now, what is for confidentiality? Of course, you all understand what is confidentiality. We should be prudent in using the information that we have received during the internal audit assignment. We should not disclose it for any personal gain or any manner that is contrary to the law. So can you all read it together? What is confidentiality? What are the rules of conduct? Can you all read it together? As employer, we should be
prudent in use and protection of information acquired in the course of duties, and we should not use information for any personal gain or in any manner that would be contrary to the law.
Okay, if there is a law or if there is a court order that has come in order to which and they have asked to disclose the information, can I go ahead and share it? Or
Yes,
yes,
I have.
So if it is against the court order, if it is the requirement of the law, then in that case we can disclose it. Okay. Moving on to competency, what did we understood? What is the key term? Competency is an individual level thing, or it's a team level thing?
It's a team level thing.
It's a team level. So we talk always, whenever we talk about competency, we're talking about a collective knowledge. Okay. So let's say, for example, let's take one critical example in competency, or let's say two important examples in competency. Let's say there's an audit which is going to be done 6 months down the line. Let's say ITGC as an area. As a team, we don't have a knowledge to do ITGC audit. Can I pick it? The answer would be, first answer would be no. But let's say in the next 6 months, I have adequate calendar in place to do adequate training before I kick off the engagement. Can I still go ahead and do it? The answer
Yes,
is
sir.
Yes.
Now, the second example is, let's say there is a person whom we need to hire in the team. Let's say the person comes from is just a BCom graduate, or the person is just coming from an engineering background. The person doesn't understand what is IPPF. The person doesn't have any experience on audit. The person doesn't have any knowledge and any experience for that matter. Can we hire that person in the team? The answer is
Yes.
Yes.
So it's a team thing. It's not an individual thing. Clear? Everyone clear with competency? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So what does competencies?
Arpit, Mudit, there was one question in the exam which was saying that,
no, don't say that. One question in the exam.
Yeah.
There could be possible question in the exam.
No, in part 1, the exam which I gave, so there was a
No, Mudit, no. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead. There could be possible question in the exam. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, so there could be a possible question that internal audit team is not competent, not skilled for a particular audit. Can they politely refuse the engagement, or can they also take a person from some other department who has a knowledge on that? So there are these two choices. Like 4 out of 4, these two are like So what is the possible answer for this?
So see, if the internal audit function doesn't have, they could see, it depends on options to options. So if the question intent is that, should we take external auditor support? In that case, the answer is yes, we can take external auditor support. If the answer is said, if the question says that, okay, can internal auditors refuse? The answer is yes, internal auditors can refuse. Internal auditors can clearly deny that we don't have the competence, so we'll not pick the engagement. Okay, so that's also again an acceptable option. Let's say can internal auditors take people from a different team? If the team itself is independent and objective, yes, the internal auditors can still take a team support from there, but not from the same function. Let's say if I have to do ITGC audit, I cannot pick any competent person from ITGC department or IT department or InfoSec department of that company itself, right? Because that will impair independence or objectivity.
But we can, we can take from other department, provided objectivity is not violated and all.
Other department, yes, we can take other department. We need to see, like you're giving the option, we need to understand, in this case, we need to understand the intent of the question. If the intent of the question is that can auditors refuse, the answer is yes, auditors can refuse. If the intent of the question is that can auditors take external support, the answer is yes, auditors can take external support. They don't have to necessarily refuse. Can the auditor, if the answer is that if the question of the intent is, if the intent of the question is that can auditors take people from different departments who have the expertise, which is independent, the answer is yes. Then, so we have to understand the intent of this question.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, great. Moving on, folks. All right, so competency, 3 rules of conduct. Can you all read it together? Engage only in those services. Can you all say that together? Engage only in those
services for which we have the necessary knowledge, skill, and experience.
Folks, only 2 people out of 29 people. Can I request more participation, please? Neha, Naveen, Mustafa,
the
everyone.
proficiency and the effectiveness of the quality of service.
Engage in those services which
Perform
we have the
internal services in accordance with standards and continually improve the proficiency and effectiveness and
Of quality services.
Wonderful. So now moving on quickly, folks. Now, when can we say we have violated different things? So when can we say we have violated integrity, or when can we say we are violating objectivity as a code of ethics? When can we say we are violating confidentiality? And when can we say we are violating competency? So violating integrity, some of the examples are if you are making claims about one's competency, as I said, making one's claim about one competency in a manner that is deceptive, false, or misleading. Let's say if you are saying that you are a CIA, but you are not. Let's say if you're a chartered accountant, you're saying that you're a chartered accountant, but you're not. So that is making claims about one competency in a manner that is deceptive, false, or misleading. This is the integrity, violating to integrity. If you're lying, if you're overlooking illegal activities like we talk about, making disparaging comments about the organization, fellow employees, or stakeholders, which is discreditable, right? So all of this is integrity. Can you all read it together? The examples which may impair integrity, can you all read it together quickly, folks?
Making
example,
claims
the
about one's
Without
competency
one
in a manner that is false or misleading,
false and misleading,
lying,
illegal
illegal
activity,
activity,
making
disparaging comments about the
organization,
organization,
fellow
audit
employees,
stakeholders.
all right. So objectivity, we have covered few of them. So when can we say we are impairing objectivities? So number one is auditing an area where a close friend or relative is employed. So again, so that can impair objectivity. Auditing an area where the auditor worked within the previous year. Now this is important, folks. Let's say if I was the procurement head of the company, okay, I was working there. Can I go and do audit for that function now within 1 year? The answer is
no.
So, okay, can I go and give consulting service? The answer is
Yes.
yes. So please remember that I cannot do an assurance engagement, but I can go ahead and give a consulting engagement. Is the 1 year is always backward or one is also forward? So let's say if I'm going to be a procurement head in the next 1 year of the company, in that case also I should not go and do the audit for that department. Okay, is that clear? So audit, can you all read it together? The second case where we can impair objectivity is auditing an area
where the auditor worked within the previous year.
Is going to work. Okay. Accepting gifts, you have already covered. Accepting fees, gifts, or entertainment from an employee, client, customer, supplier, or business associates, that all can impair objectivity. Distorting facts reported in the final engagement communication. So if we are distorting the facts, we are not giving adequate information. Sale of service or products by the employer to the organization itself. If we are providing services, if you're selling to the or products to the organization itself, that can impair objectivity. Working in a non-audit position and accepting gifts not permitted by. Okay, so this is again important. Let's say if I'm the procurement head, I'm a CIA. I'm not into the internal audit position. Can I still go ahead and accept the gift? The answer is no. So be it even if we are in a non-internal audit position, we should not accept the gift. Is that clear?
Yes.
All right. So then not communicating pertinent information to the CA, accepting a bonus based on work accomplished during an audit, and intentional omission of disclosures of illegal activity from final engagement communications. So those are the things that can impair objectivity. Okay. Please go ahead, Rakesh.
Sir, one small query. Sir, if my relative or friends in some function, if I'm doing audit, whether it is objectivity impairment or it is presumed to be impairment, sir, because if I'm able to show and produce and prove myself that my audit, working paper, everything is pakka. So whether it is presumed. Okay.
So that's what we covered, right?
Yes, sir. And there's one more small query. So if I'm not in audit function, and if I'm a CIA, and if I'm accepting gifts, whether it is objectivity impairment, sir, because I'm actually not at all an internal auditor.
See, that's what we have written here. Working in a non-audit position and accepting gifts not permitted by IA Code of Conduct.
Okay,
working in a non-audit position and accepting gifts is not permitted by the IA Code. So if we are CIA and if we are on a non-audit position also, then also we should not accept it.
Sir, but why, sir? Just out of curiosity, why I should not accept? Because I'm not at all an auditor there.
That's the IA Code of Conduct. If you're accepting the gifts, then you may not do the work objectively for the organization.
No, but it's simple. No, you are a member of the institute. Obviously, from the CA also, CW also, CS also. Anything which is against the institute, we cannot do.
So anything, it's not about the institute. Anything that can act, that can be, that can. So it's basically code of ethics, right? So every code of ethics of the organization, of the institute, of any honorary body would say that, okay, we should not get acting to bribery, corruption, should not false disparaging comments, should not do something which is unethical. So accepting gifts is a sign that could be like a kickback can be considered. So it's like unethical practice that can involve unethical practice. So that's why it's saying that. Make sense, Rakesh?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to confidentiality quickly. So let's say when can we say we have impaired confidentiality? So again, using insider financial, strategic, or operational knowledge of an organization to bring about personal financial gain by purchasing or selling shares in the organization. Releasing insider knowledge to journalists or via other media without proper authorization. So again, folks, like some of you said that, okay, if we have just, let's say there was a irregularity that was happening. Okay, we have went ahead and we have shared that information to outsiders. Should we do it? The answer is no. The first thing that we need to inform is to the senior management and the board. I think someone asked you that question, right? So Should we go directly to the regulators? The answer is no. The first thing that we need to go is to inform to the senior management board. The second thing is we should take adequate support from the legal counsel team. We should understand from them what could be the impact, and accordingly we can disclose it. Then we can probably look out and we can take management approvals that okay, can we disclose outside? Then we can do it. Okay, make sense? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Then third is yeah. Sorry, is there a query?
Yeah, sorry, Arpit. I'm asking a query related to the second last point of objectivity. It is accepting a bonus based on a work accomplishment during an audit. But if I try to correlate this thing with the variable pay in the organizations, where certain amount of your salary is attached with the organization goal and other things. So is it something related to or impairing the objectivity? Because
so that won't. So something that is applicable to all the employees of the company, like any company would have a performance appraisal mechanism, like a company performance linked bonus, like so how well the company perform, how well you have done at overall all the assignments across the year, how was your performance? Based on that, the rating mechanism will be done, and accordingly the bonus will be done. That is all done. It's basically putting a point, trying to put a point that okay, let's say if you're able to make this much of recovery, then in an audit, then you will be given this much of salary or this much of bonus. So your work on an individual assignment base should not be linked to those bonuses, should not be on a commission-based model, basically.
But if we talk about particularly, provisioning working, so if
we are talking about
provision working, so take an example that there should be, X amount of provision, but
X amount
of provision, which is directly impacting your, bottom line, the profit. And being an auditor, you see that the provision working is not adequate. There should be a more provision. But if we put the more provision, then the profit will be reduced, and then your indicator for your performance or variable pay will be impacted. So how these things, because I have seen many debates on it there where the people say that auditor should pay on a fixed basis instead of auditing related to the company profit and other things. Yes, definitely the performance is the one criteria, but not the organization performance.
See, as I said, it all depends on case-to-case basis and the way organization should do it. But the way I take this point, it depends on organization structure to structure, the salary structure they want to propose. Normally, it may be different also. I may be wrong to say that okay, for internal auditor it should be fixed, and for others it could be bonus linked. The answer, it depends on organization to organization. I think the way we should look at that, accepting a bonus based work. Just by taking one example on the provision, I'm not sure. That okay, just for an individual bonus, we will probably not highlight that point. I don't see much of a reason to it. That okay, if there is a big point, I think more of a reason to kind of say that okay, there are inadequate provisions in the books, and that prove the quality of the work rather than getting some amount of incentive bonus for an individual employer. But I think here the ask is more from a point of view that. Let's say any individual projects are such linked. Let's say if you kind of recover on a revenue assurance this much, you will be paid this much of amount. Or let's say if you are able to recover duplicate payments amount this much, or you are able to highlight, then you will be passed on this much, 10% of that, whatever recovery or duplicate payment you identify. So those may impair objectivity basically. But I don't think so from a generalized concept, it may impair much of it, because it all depends on the structure to structure of the company. And I don't see that it can be concluded on an individual engagement. It's more of an overall performance links during the year, right? How much it has various performance criteria. It could be completing all the assignments on time, bringing it insights to the management, getting a client appraisals or getting the team appraisals or whatever it is. There could taking more leads, filling up for the people who have left, doing multiple critical engagements. There could be various bases of performance evaluation, right? How many trainings you have done, pass on those knowledge to the team members, certification obtained, type of assignments handled. There could be multiple reasons. So the performance evaluation that you are talking about, I think it should not really impair the objectivity in my view.
Okay, thank you.
Because there are multiple reasons to it. I think the way we should read this particular point is any individual engagement, sort of a recovery or a percentage model or a percentage fee model or a commission model should be avoided. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
All right, let's move forward. So I think now last point is disclosing confidential information in response to the court order is not a violation. Can you all read it together? Disclosing confidential information in response to the court order is
not a violation.
all right. So moving on to competency, the last thing, if we are accepting an engagement where employment function collectively lacks, can you all read it together? Competency, when can we say we are violating? Can you all read it together?
Engagement where internal audit function collectively lacks knowledge, skill, experience, or proficiency is a violation.
Perfect. So moving on, so with that, we have kind of set up our ways on the code of ethics. So are you all now clear with, if I have to go back on IPPF framework, are you all now clear with what is mandatory guidance? Are you clear with Bishil? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you clear with what are the core principles? Now, in fact, if you go to the core principles, are you clear with demonstrates integrity? What is all we are talking about integrity? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Are we clear about competency? Yes. We are
Yes,
talking.
sir.
Are we clear on about objectivity? The answer is yes.
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 Yes. So this is how we have to learn it, folks. Okay. Under the IPPF, you're clear with definition. Under the mandatory guidance, you're clear with core principles, standards. Are you clear with 4 types of standards? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Are you clear with the 4 types of code of ethics? The 4 code
Yes,
of ethics: integrity, objectivity, confidentiality, competency. Yes. So this is how you have to reflect. Okay. Wonderful. So let's move forward now. So the next and important concept is internal audit charter. Anyone who would like to throw some light? Mudit, you want to share some thought on what is internal charter?
Yeah, it's the document which is being approved by the board or the internal audit committee, and it consists of a couple of things like the scope, engagement, what is to be the purpose, authority, responsibility, and this document, approved document, enables you to for seeking the information or any resources which you want to use for your engagement. And this for both assurance and consulting services.
Right. Perfect. Very good. Anyone else who would like to share some thought on internal
I think
charter?
I should. I just and Dilip here.
Please go ahead, Dilip.
Audit charter fundamentally is declared that is a kind of a document. Number one, it's basically includes a scope of work.
Right.
Related scope of work, and this particular document is approved by the authority.
Right.
This is how we generally conclude this audit charter.
Right. Wonderful. So anyone else who would like to take a shot on what is internal charter all about? Shubham, you want to go ahead? Shubham or Rakesh, Shivakant, anyone? Govardhan?
I just want to add one more thing, Digdish here. It's also talk about authority and the responsibility of your audit team or the auditor.
Right. Perfect. Very good.
Just one question. So I understand that internal audit charter is prepared with all due cares and considering all the areas of scope of working and everything. Could there be a case that during the engagement something is found which was not falling under the scope and can be included in the final engagement or final communication? Is it possible?
Yes, I think it's yes.
Yeah. So you're saying that, let's say, for example, let's say my internal audit charter says that the scope of services is only assurance consulting. It doesn't talk about forensic engagements to be done by the internal team. And you say that, okay, during the assignments, we noted that, okay, there was certain audit findings which are fraud or require investigation, and we have picked that investigation exercise ourselves, right? Something like that.
No, not about investigation. That I understand that is not in the purview of internal auditor. But something which is not mentioned in the scope and we just came across. Can we just include that report in the reporting, or we can just ignore it?
So then we are confusing, and I was thinking about that only. That a lot of times we talk about scope. So engagement scope is not written on internal charter, right?
Okay.
Engagement scope. And can I quickly hear the word yes from everyone? Are you all with me? Can I quickly hear the word yes?
Yes.
Kuman, Kishwar, Govardhan, everyone with me? Yes. See, this is very important. A lot of times in the examination, examiner may ask you that internal charters should provide for scope of services. It is basically talking about the scope of services. It is not talking about the scope of the engagement. So engagement scoping will be in the engagement plan, or it may be in the RBIA, this base employee plan. But internal audit charter doesn't say that, okay, under the procurement function, you're going to look in these 10 areas. Internal audit charter will only talk about the scope of services, okay, that you can do assurance, you can do consulting, you can do fraud related engagements, you can do IT related engagements. Those are part of it. So it talks about the scope of services. It doesn't talk about the scope of assignment. Make sense, Shivagan?
Correct. Understood.
Yeah. So internal audit charter. Now your second question would be that, okay, if my engagement planning on engagement scope says that, okay, this is what we need to cover, and during the audit, if we have find something more, should we report? The answer is yes. Ideally, you should. Ideally is that you can always, and even in lot of announcement memos that you will be seeing, you will be sharing across, you may mention that, okay, while this is the scope, but the scope can extend further, or depending on the assessment that you do, or depending on the audit fieldwork that has been done. So again, that can be done, that can be separately reported. There could be various ways of doing it, but it should not be avoided. Yeah.
Understood.
Right. So, but that's a very, very important thing, folks. A lot of time we confuse the scope of services with the scope of engagement. Internal audit charter, is it talking about scope of engagement, or is it talking about scope of services?
Scope of services.
So internal audit charter will provide that, okay, we can do assurance engagement, we can do consulting nature of engagements, we can do fraud related nature of engagements, we can do IT related engagements. So all of that is part of internal audit charter. Make sense, everyone? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So let's
Arpit, just I have a question here. Just could you please?
Yeah, please go ahead.
No, my question is that here, let's say that in the charter, we include services, and beside this, it is a high level statement or kind of data get captured into charter, correct? This is how you say that. But hopefully there could be a situation wherein some services would not be initially captured in the beginning, but during this course of actions, and we found that this service also to be included into that. In that case, how one should carry out?
So normally, see, Dilip, normally the way it is said is that annually the charter should be revised, should be reviewed. So of course it can be done. Let's say if you want to include, let's say in the initially we have written that, okay, we will do only assurance and consulting. Will not do fraud. Internal team will not do even IT engagements. Let's say for that, it's mentioned clearly that fraud and IT is not included. And let's say the organization wanted to extend it, so then they can revise the charter. Or on an annual basis, it will any which ways should be reviewed. So in that case also it can be included. So those factors can be done.
Again, charter will be approved by board or senior?
By the board. So internal audit charter is prepared by the CAE, Chief Audit Executive, and it is you can say reviewed at a senior management level. But ultimately, the final approval of the charter is the board.
But how do you differentiate between board and shareholders?
Okay, the board is see the board and shareholders would be always different, right? So shareholders would be okay. Some of the members on the shareholders can be the board member if it is more of a promoter-driven organization. But normally, let's say if it is a listed company, so there will be a different board, right? So board is what? Board is the highest governing body, right? So board is the highest governing body. It could be it could be like if for a listed company, or if it is a statutory compliance, then there could be independent board members also. Let's say there's a 5 members board, 10 members board. So there could be 3 members who are independent. There's 1 member who is who's the managing director, 1 member from the trust, or whatever it is. So there could be different composition of the board depending on organization to organization. So board, it depends. See, if you're talking about a promoter-driven company, you may say that, okay, the board member, the key board member is the promoter himself or herself. But then it's okay. The way we need to understand is board is the highest governing body. It could be trustees, it could be governors, it could be board of governors, it could be audit committee, it could be the board of directors, it could be anything. It could be board members, anything. It's basically the highest governing body in an organization.
So that means it can be defined into the standard, in the implementation standard, wherein we can declare this kind of parameter, right?
Right. So normally when we understand part 1 more in detail, there we understand that, okay, what is board, what is CAE? Okay, all of these are clarified in the part 1. But at this point of time, see, board is any highest governing body. See, normally in any control frameworks that we talk about, anything that we talk about from even when we are going to talk about IA 3 lines model. Okay, so you will we all understand that we always want to separate governance from management. Okay, management is basically what the CEO, the CFO, and the CXO level people who are actually managing day-to-day shows and managing the entire is basically implementing it, designing it, and establishing everything. Governing body or the board, the audit committees, they have the overseeing responsibility primarily, right? So they more provide directions to the management to kind of do things and oversee them. So that's the role of highest governing body.
Thank
Make
you.
sense?
Thanks.
Make sense? Yeah. All right, great. So everyone, can I quickly hear the word yes? Internal audit charter we are talking about. Are you all with me quickly? Can I quickly hear the word yes?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Wonderful. So internal audit charter, we are going to talk about three important things. One is purpose, authority, and responsibility. So normally in the internal audit charter, what is there? It talks about purpose. Can you all say that together with me? The internal audit charter provides for purpose,
Authority and responsibility.
responsibility. Okay. So what is the purpose of employment activity? If I have to ask in one word, what is the purpose? Ultimately, the purpose is to add
Value.
Okay. How do we do it? By providing independent, objective, assurance, and consulting services. So that is all that we have understood in definition. Now, what is assurance? What is consulting? Now, this is important. This is also in the part 2 that we'll understand. So, but what is assurance and consulting? Can anyone tell what is the difference between assurance and consulting? Quickly. What is the difference between assurance and
consulting?
consulting?
Only 2 parties are involved, and in assurance, 3 parties will be involved. And in assurance, 3 parties will be involved.
First of all, what is assurance and consulting? Folks, assurance, we are giving and expressing an opinion, right? So, are you all with me? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, are you all with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Just a second. It looks like my voice is going.
Yeah.
Just a second. It looks like my voice is
Yes.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
All right. So what I was saying is assurance is basically where we are expressing an opinion, right? So we are trying to give an independent opinion. So that's that's about assurance services. Consulting is where what we are doing is we are giving advice, facilitating, we are giving training, nature of engagements as such.
Sorry, your voice is echoing even for me.
Yeah.
It is echoing, right?
Yes, sir. It's echoing even for me.
Some noise is coming. Sorry, some noise is coming the back and Arpit ji.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, no, much better. No, much better.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no, much better.
Yes, sir.
Still echoing.
All right, just a second, please. Is it better now? Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Much better, I think, somewhat better side.
Yeah, it's fine.
Fine, right? Okay,
I
great.
guess we are good to go.
All right, good, very good. So now let's move forward, folks. We are talking about internal charter, again, a very important concept to understand. So internal audit charter is where we are talking about. Internal audit charter is one that document which clearly says that this is the purpose.
Still echo is there.
Still
echo is there.
I can also hear back me, so it's very difficult for me also to. It's still coming.
I think there is a facilities wherein you can mute every stakeholder, RPG. I think from your end, is it possible?
Yeah, I can do that. Just one second.
While you delivering, you can mute every stakeholder so that easy for us to.
Can you all hear me? On the chat box, please. Is it still echoing? At least I can't hear. Yeah, so there was something at someone's end. I don't know. All right, let's move forward, but it will be very difficult for doing the session without allowing to mute yourself. So can we just do a hit and trial, please? Give me a 2 minutes, please. Okay. You all can unmute yourself, or whoever want to unmute.
Yeah, hi.
You all can unmute yourself, or whoever want to unmute.
Okay,
this
sir.
Is between, this is someone.
No,
Shivakan,
sir.
can you mute yourself once? This is someone. Just still there. Harsh, can you unmute yourself? Can you mute yourself? Can you all hear me now? Shivakan, unmute yourself.
Yeah,
Harsh,
hi.
you don't mute yourself. Don't unmute yourself.
Hello.
Harsh, don't unmute yourself. I think this was because of Harsh. If you are
No,
unmuting yourself,
if somebody is keeping the phone near the device, it may do that.
No, it happens due to 2 devices if someone is logged in.
Yeah, that's what. No.
I guess someone has.
No, if somebody is using a
to
laptop and keeping a
laptop
mobile
and
phone close to laptop, it will do that.
all right. So my request is, Harsh, you keep your mute. You keep yourself on mute, because I think it's because of some problem at your end. Otherwise, everyone now can hear me clearly, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Correct.
All right. So let's come back on internal audit charter, folks, quickly. So internal audit charter, we were talking about we were talking about purpose, authority, and responsibility. So internal audit charter talks about the purpose, authority, and responsibility. What is our purpose? Ultimately, our purpose is to add value. How do we add value? By providing independent, objective assurance and consulting services. So we have understood objectivity at this point of time as one of the keywords from definition of employing. Now moving on to assurance and consulting. Now, as I said, this is very important term, assurance and consulting. There is a complete chapter, unit 2 and unit 3, all about assurance engagements and consulting engagements. That is in the part 2 itself. So it's very important to set our foundation of what is assurance services all about, what is consulting services all about. Now, what is assurance? So as I said, assurance is where we are expressing an opinion. So it's objective, where one is that we are performing the work objectively. So are you now clear with whenever the word objectivity comes to our mind, what are the key 2 words that it should be unbiased, and the second is we should avoid conflict of interest, right? So those are the 2 keywords. Objectivity, yes or no? Yes. So when we're talking about objective assessment, we are saying not to participate, not to accept, and disclosing all the adequate information. Again, 3 important words that we have understood from objectivity. So when we talk about assurance services, we are talking about objective assessment of evidence to provide opinion or conclusion. It could be regarding an entity as a whole. It could be for a specific operation. It could be a specific function. It could be a specific process. It could be a system, or it could be any other thing, right? So as an assurance engagement, we can do assurance for the complete company. We can do for a specific location. We can look for a specific plant. We can look for specific function, be it payroll function, be it finance function, be it marketing function. We can look for any specific process. So we basically, under the assurance service, we provide objective assessment of that. So that is assurance services. We are expressing our opinion in that. The nature and scope of assurance service, this is determined by the internal auditor. It is, and now this is something very, very important, folks, that you all need to remember is the scope of assurance services are determined by whom? The scope of assurance services are determined by the, can you all say that
internal
together with
auditor.
me? It's by the internal auditor. Okay. There are 3 participants, as Rakesh also mentioned. There are 3 participants in an assurance engagement. One is the auditor who is auditing it. The second is the auditee who is getting audited. And the third is the stakeholder, the users, who are the users of the internal audit reports. It could be the board, it could be the audit committee, it could be the external auditors, it could be sometimes maybe the regulatory bodies who have probably appointed us, right? So the users are basically, so there are 3 participants basically. Is that clear in the assurance services? Are you all clear with definition? Are you clear with who determines the scope of assurance service and who are the 3 parties involved in assurance? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Answer is yes. All right. So what are the types of assurance engagements that we can do? So we can do a due diligence engagement. We can do a financial audit. We can do a compliance audit. We can do a
System
security audit, and we can do any type of process audits or whatever you can say. So those are the different types of audits that we can do, or different types of assurance engagements that we can do. Moving on to consulting services now. So consulting services are more recommendatory in nature, more advisory in nature, more you can say it's like recommendatory. Is that clear? The difference between assurance and consulting? Assurance, we are doing objective assessment and expressing an opinion whether things are going fine or not. Or where areas of, what are the areas of improvement, or what are the findings that we're looking at. In the consulting, it's more intended to add value and improve organization by providing recommendatory nature of engagements. Okay, so here what it is saying, it says activities intended to add value and improve an organization GRC process. It's more advisory in nature. Under the consulting engagements, the nature and scope of the assignment is agreed with the engagement client. So it's basically subject to agreement with the engagement client. Participants, there are two participants normally in consulting services. One is the auditor, or you can say the consultant, and the second is the auditee or the client itself. And the third, what are the examples of consulting engagements? It could be advice, it could be facilitation, it could be training and stuff like that. Okay. Are you all clear with assurance and consulting? Over to you. Yeah,
yes,
please
sir.
go ahead.
Yes.
Dilip, please go ahead.
Sir.
I think there are two questions, but that's fine. So yeah, Dilip, please go ahead.
Yeah, Arpit, my question on this part, assurance and consulting services, generally what I have seen that while how one can give the add value in internal audit, generally it should be both combined together. This is
absolutely.
Well, adding value means as an internal auditor, he will do both the part. Assurance and consulting both. This is what I can think of. This is correct approach.
So okay, so one is that what you're saying is correct. So in order to enhance value, we do a combination of assurance and consulting, which is also called as blended engagements, which is also on the next slide, by the way. Now, what is blended engagement is exactly what you said. Sometimes we do assurance and we get into consulting mode. Sometimes we do consulting and we want to get into assurance mode. So that's to enhance value. But at this point of time, we need to understand that a lot of times as a CAE, as a chief risk officer or chief audit executive or the GRC head, whatever you want to call it, as that position to be, who is leading the internal audit function, we have to report to the board on 2 or 3 parameters that, okay, these are the type of assurance engagement we picked. What are the results out of it? These are the consulting engagements that we picked during the year. This is the output of that. So we need to learn to differentiate between what is assurance and what is consulting, because consulting, as I said, see, the fundamental understanding is consulting is where it is more advisory in nature. But under the assurance, as an employer, we are determining the scope at the beginning of the year, which is at the overall RBIA. We are preparing, the RBI is prepared by the employer. The inputs are taken from the stakeholders, the inputs are taken from the board, and accordingly, it is finally approved by the board. But the scope is determined by the internal auditor. Okay. Under the consulting, it's a specific engagement that we are trying to enter into, and it's more like, okay, the client needs some advice on the risk management, the client needs something on the governance, the client needs something on the anything on the control recommendation. So that is where we are getting into and trying to support them, facilitating them. So that's more consulting in nature. Make sense?
Yeah, correct. You see, this came to my mind because when we talk about add value and improve organization operational efficiency, that's why I was trying to understand this definition on that part. It could be both together. This is what I can.
Yeah, so both together, whenever we say that, okay, when we are bringing up assurance and consulting together, normally we use the word as, these are called as blended engagements. So let's say, let's take a very interesting example, and that will also cover our next topic, which is blended engagements. Let's say there was a HR and payroll audit that we have done, and we noted that in the assurance function that there are people who are taking an exit in the company. For them, let's say the access rights have not been revoked, or let's say the IT assets handover have not been returned back to the company, or let's say there are cases of fraudulent or excess payroll payment. So under the assurance engagement, what we'll do, we'll highlight these as findings that, okay, these are the things that are not going properly or that should have been done properly along with the recommendation. Now, these recommendations are somewhere in consulting in nature. Let's say we have still went ahead and given a recommendation. Now, what will happen is, one is that the assignment gets ended and we do a follow-up whether the actions have been taken by the management or not. The second is, let's say the management gives us another additional, or have requested us to do a consulting engagement to guide the team that how do they do it. So we go ahead and we kind of handhold them and try to help them to understand that, okay, this is the way you should do it. We don't start doing it on their behalf, but we guide them to do it so that they can actually implement that also. So that becomes a consulting nature. Am I making sense?
Yes. See, audit charter while drafting an audit charter, should we include that this particular engagement is based on assurance or consulting?
No. Let's not confuse this. See, internal audit charter talks about that, okay, what are the nature of services that we do? It will say that, okay, employers will do assurance engagements, will do consulting engagements, will do these are the different types of engagements. Simple as that. Now, under the assurance engagements, what will be there? Under the consulting engagements, what will be there? This will be part of my plan for the entire year. So let's say if I am running an internal audit activity function, if I am the chief audit executive of the company, ABC, okay, for the entire year, I will prepare a plan. Okay, I'll prepare that, okay, these are the 15 assurance engagements that I'll do. And these are the 10 consulting engagements that I'll do. Okay, so that is the way we prepare at the time of planning of that. In the internal audit charter, it only talk about the nature of services that we do.
Got it.
Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So at this point of time, what I'm trying to say is, so now we need to understand, okay, let's say if someone asks, if the management asks, what is the difference between assurance and consulting? Then we need to tell them, okay, under assurance, we are doing an assessment. We are objectively assessing your areas and telling you that whether things are going properly or not. Under the consulting engagements, we are advising you, we are facilitating you, we are providing training to you to understand that, okay, this is the way you should do it. Again, please don't confuse that we are going to start implementing on their behalf. It is still the management responsibility to implement it. It's a management responsibility to design things. We have to guide them. We have to facilitate them. We have to train them. We have to advise them. We have to recommend them. So those are consulting engagements. Make sense now, everyone? Yes?
Yes.
So that's important. Komal is asking, sir, in some of the organization, users and process owners can be same in case of assurance service. Is it correct? Please confirm. Or is it mandatory to have 3 parties of assurance? See, Komal, as I said, see, process owners, you can say, so normally the way assurance services we talk about is, there's the auditor, auditee, and the users of the internal audit reports. That's where we call it users. If you have to ask me, and sometimes in the examination also this is asked, that our internal audit reports are most important for whom, or it will help whom the most important? The answer is to the users as a process owners. So the process owners will improvise and take necessary actions. So that is the internal audit reports is very helpful for them. That is the way we need to see. But now, in order to differentiate between as a user, see, process owners are the people whom we are auditing for. So that's why we call them auditee, other process owners whom we are auditing. And the users are the users of the report. So normally users, you can still go ahead and say, but in order to have a proper clarity about the 3 users normally, so beyond the process owners also, there will be multiple users. Like, as I said, there could be board, there could be external auditors who will use that report for their assurance purposes also.
Yeah.
Make sense? So users will be much more than process owners. So your question is that, okay, is it mandatory to have 3 parties for assurance? So the answer is, it will naturally be there, because the internal audit report users will be much more than 2 only, right? So because one auditor and auditee will always be there, there will be third group of people who will use that reports for assurance purposes. It could be external audit, it could be for the reference of board, senior management, whatever you want to call it. Make sense? Grusha, you have some question?
Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Normally, while doing an assurance audit, we need to do a follow-up activity and ask the engagement client about the rectification of the findings.
Yeah, jumping on the last chapter of part 2. But anyway, just go ahead.
Anyway, it's okay. I'll wait then. It's okay.
So no, please go ahead. No worries.
So this I'm asking because of my experience. Normally, assurance audit, we do ask the client for a follow-up activity and ask the client about the rectification of the findings. But as far as consulting services concerned, wherein it is more of advisory in nature, do we really need to check this, whether the client has applied it in its organization or not?
it depends on the agreement that we have on the consulting engagements. Do we need to do a follow-up or not? But assurance, we definitely need to do it. That
Yes.
even the standard says, that, okay, let's say the management, if there is a critical finding, we should do adequate follow till the time that is the actions have been taken adequate enough to close that audit findings, or have brought that audit findings to the level that the risk is within the risk appetite of the company. So that as an auditor, we need to ensure that's our responsibility. We don't have to go and take the action, but we need to ensure that we do adequate follow-ups to ensure that the corrective actions have been taken. If not, then we have to again go ahead and highlight and understand from the management that why. First of all, we'll understand from the management why there's no action done, what is the problem going on, and then if they've just accepted the risk as it is, then we need to understand, and then we need to inform again to the board.
All right. Thank you.
No, so that means Arpit, that means you are going. Is that in contract obligation to be signed off?
Or
consulting services, in consulting services where this question what has been asked, let's say that in the follow-up queries, whether it is a job of internal auditor to assess that whether this task has been completed or not.
So in my view, see, it all depends on the nature of engagement, consulting engagement that we're trying to do. See, if we want to go ahead and follow up and check a status that, okay, whether you have implemented it, how's the progress and all, so we can always do it in order to kind of ensure, or I would say in order to see that, okay, whether actions have been taken or not. But fundamentally, it's not that's not the standard says that, okay, we have to go mandatorily.
Yeah,
but let's say if there is an audit fine. But let's say if there is an audit fine. Okay, let's try to understand this. Let's say you're doing a consulting services. I'll put it this way. Let's say you're doing a consulting services, and you've identified that during the consulting engagement, and that's a very interesting thought, folks. And this is very important. Can I quickly hear the word yes from everyone? Are you all with me? Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. So let's take a situation.
Yes.
Let's take a situation, and that is again linked to a blended engagement. Okay, let's talk about that. Okay, there is a service that you have done for the you're doing a consulting service. Let's say there is a new system getting implemented in the company. As a consulting services, you are just evaluating whether the necessary controls are there or not in that pre-handed, right? So like so it's more like consulting rather than you're doing an assurance, let's say, for example, or you're recommending something. During the consulting nature of service, you identify that there is an open risk. Okay, and now there's an open risk which could impact a lot to the organization. So while the assignment was not assurance, the assignment was consulting. And during the consulting engagement, you have identified that there's a risk which can impact significantly to the organization, right? That can be there. That could be a possible case. Yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
So now let's say if you have noted that. One is that you will go and inform to the management and the board that, okay, while we were doing a consulting service, this is the risk that we are perceiving. Okay, let's take an example. Let's say the organization has requested you to help them to develop the standard operating procedures of the company for the first time. Let's say while you're developing the standard operating procedures of the company, you will go and do the process walkthroughs, understand, and you will document the SOPs. Yes or no? Yes?
Yes.
Yes or no? So now
Yes.
when you are understanding that, you understand that, okay, these are the 5 areas where things are not being done the way it should have been. It's like a design level thing that you have understood. Okay, it was a consulting service. It was not an assurance service, right? So it was a consulting service. Now you have understood that there can be a problem, right? So now you go and tell to the management, the board, you report to the CAE, you tell them that, okay, there could be a possible issue there. So it may lead to assurance engagement. The CAE may put that as part of the plan as a special assignment. The management and the board may say, okay, you have identified it, go and do an assurance review. So like consulting is leading to assurance. Now let's say during that point of time, you've understood that the risk is very high. Okay, the risk is not within the risk appetite of the company. Or there should have been action taken such. In that case, you should go and do a follow-up for sure. Make sense? So it's not that, okay, in the consulting engagement, if something is written, for every item, we have to do a follow-up. If the engagement agreement provides for that, we will do it as the part of our service. But from an internal auditor point of view, I think the way we need to perceive is that anything that is going beyond the risk appetite of the company, or anything that is a very critical finding, as an auditor, it is our responsibility to ensure that the corrective actions have been taken by the management. It's not the auditor has to take an action, but to ensure that they have taken it, they have not accepted the risk. If they have accepted the risk, we need to understand from them first, and then we have to inform to the management and the board. Is that clear now, everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Make sense? Are you all clear?
Yes.
So this is a very, very prominent concept that is tested, folks, in the examination is also that, let's say if we have identified a critical finding, okay, if we have identified a critical finding and we noted that there was no action taken by the senior management, what should we do first? Should we go and inform to the board? Should we go and inform to the regulatory authority? Should we go and discuss with the senior management? What should we do? What will be your answer? The first action would be
discuss with the senior management.
Discuss with the senior management why they have accepted it, why the action was not taken, then inform to the. Okay, clear everyone now? Everyone clear with what is assurance, what is consulting? Are you all clear? Assurance is, can you all say that together? Assurance is objective
assessment of evidence to provide
opinion
conclusions
regarding an entity,
operation, function, process, system, or other subject matters.
And what is consulting? Activities intended to add value.
Activities intended to add value and improve
the more
organization's
advisory in
GRC.
nature. Okay, so a lot of times we feel that, okay, there are cases where the people challenge that, okay, who have given you access, who have given you authority to ask for this information? There's a confidentiality, we cannot give you the pricing, we cannot give you the payroll data, or and so on and so forth. So that document that you can say that, okay, that is giving us authority to unrestricted access is
Internal
audit charter. Please take a note of that. So internal audit charter will provide, so like it is telling the purpose, it's telling the nature of engagements that we do. Internal audit charter will also provide us the authority to the employed function, is that internal audit activity should be empowered to require auditees to grant access to all records, personal and physical properties relevant to the performance of every engagement. Can you all say that together? What is under authority? Internal audit activity should be
empowered to require auditees to grant access to all records, personal and physical properties relevant to the performance of every engagement.
Okay, Rakesh, let me just quickly complete internal charter, then we'll take your queries. Moving on to the last one, which is responsibility. So responsibility is to provide the organization with assurance and consulting services that will add value again. So again, that is our responsibility, that we should provide assurance and consulting services that should add value. So who finally approved the charter? Can you all say that together? The final approval of the charter resides with the
board.
Okay. Perfect. So I think we have already covered blended engagements, folks. Now, what is blended engagements? As I've already told, blended engagements is where we are talking about combination of both assurance leading to consulting, or consulting leading to assurance. So in case the examiner is asking you anywhere on the assurance and consulting as a together, just take a note that it is more of a blended engagement. Okay. So I'll just take a quick read on this. It says assurance and consulting services are not mutually exclusive. So an audit activity can have both assurance and consulting components. A blended engagement may consolidate elements of assurance and consulting activities. A blended engagement may take the form of a due diligence engagement to provide assurance and consulting services in support of management evaluation of an acquisition candidate. For example, in other instances, individual components of an engagement may be specified as assurance and or consulting. This blending of two types of services can add value and create efficiencies. Like Dilip also mentioned, two types of assignments can further enhance value. So it's exactly that these blending engagements, assurance with consulting, consulting with insurance, can enhance value and create more efficiencies. However, if assurance and consulting services are blended, it must be ensured that there are no conflict of independence, objectivity, or otherwise with regard to the roles and responsibilities. Now, what does this last line mean? Anyone who can tell? Anyone who can tell what does the last line mean? Can we provide consulting to such an extent that it can impair objectivity and independence? Let's say, for example, we have went ahead and we have designed, installed, implemented, drafted, everything we have done. Now, can we go and give assurance services for that?
No.
The answer is no. It will impair objectivity, right? So that's why it says if assurance and consulting services are blended, it must be ensured that there are no conflict of independence, objectivity, or otherwise with regard to the roles and responsibilities. Okay. All right. Rakesh, please go ahead.
Sir, can an internal auditor function head can you frame a whistleblower policy for a company?
See, if you're saying internal auditor, ideally internal auditor should not draft the policies and procedures. Okay, they should recommend and advise. So implementation, designing, drafting, installation, all of these are the roles and responsibility of the management. Okay, but management may seek support of the internal audit function from a consulting standpoint of view. If the management is asking that, so internal auditor need to ensure that, okay, if the internal audit function has drafted it, let's say for example, then internal audit function should not evaluate. Make sense?
Okay, sir. That is.
Are you getting it? So
yes,
it's simple. Fundamental concept is we cannot review our own work. Let's say if I have drafted the policy and procedure of the company, can I evaluate it? The answer is no. Right? Let's say if my function and my team has done it, can I do it for my own function? That okay, whether they have done the work properly or not? The answer is no. So let's say a lot of times you also understand that the internal auditor, the CA is taking multiple roles in the company. It's just not taking an internal audit function head role. Let's say the internal audit function CA is also taking a role of a compliance officer of the company. Okay, the CA is a chief audit executive. The CA is also the chief compliance officer of the company. The person is taking two roles. That is possible? Yes or no? The answer is yes. Yes or no? Yes. The answer could be yes. Yes. So now, can I review my own work? The answer is no. If I am doing that, if I'm doing it purposefully, then I'm impairing objectivity. If the organization is asking me to do it, then it is organization independence issue. Make sense?
Okay, sir. Sir, and actually one more query. If CAPA implemented by a senior management, that is a corrective and preventive action. So then, if it is not implemented in a right fashion, so can an internal audit function head report this to board? In that case, for example, a corrective.
Okay, so anything implemented by the management, anything implemented by the management.
Senior management is implementing something. So what we are recommending, they are not implementing. They have their own fashion of implementation, and which is not addressing the problem rightly. So in that case, can an internal audit function go ahead and take this to BOD, or how should we deal it in a practical case?
Yeah, so practical is simple. See, let's say there is some implementation that is happening. Let's say it's not meeting the objectives. Okay, it's not meeting the objectives of the organization. It's not meeting the objectives, or there could be better practices for that. So in that case, implementers can determine, can evaluate that thing, and can go ahead and share that thing with the board, with the senior management, whatever, like first to the senior management and the board. So that can be done.
Okay, sir.
Right. So it depends. See, it is not that every engagement that happens in the company we have to do it. We have to go with the plan, right? Let's say it's in our purview to see and evaluate that part. If it is there, then we will, of course, we'll go and tell, right? So that this is the approach that was discussed. This is the best practices that is there, and this is not the way it is being done. So these are the gaps that is there. It could be delays. It could be incorrect implementation. It could be lack of understanding. All of those are part of our reviews that we should report. That okay, why there is delays in implementation, why there are properly things have not been implemented as per the pre-plan. Everything like let's say there is a new system software has been implemented recently, and you do a SDLC audit, software development lifecycle audit. So you can always go ahead and say that okay, there was no properly UAT done, there was no proper business case prepared, there was no feasibility study done, there was so much of delay because of so many reasons. All of it you can always go and report, right?
Okay, sir.
Make sense?
Sir, Arpit sir.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, I have a question. Suppose an organization is having an internal audit department. Okay.
This is. Can you please call out your name?
Sir, this is Harsh.
Yes, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So, sir, suppose an organization is having an internal audit department, personal internal audit department. Okay. So, and that department give an audit of warehouse, let's say of the company's warehouse.
Yeah.
So, whether there will be in India, there's not kind of any standard internal audit charter for that warehouse audit. So it seems that by default they are having authority and responsibility for doing that audit. Like they are having the authority for accessing all the data and all these things. If they are having an internal audit department by their own, not from any other outside agency.
I'm not clear. Can you repeat your question? So you're saying that who is giving this warehouse audit?
Suppose an organization is having an internal audit department. Okay, it's a manufacturing organization, and they are having their own warehouses.
Okay.
Okay, so that department gives an audit of warehouses.
Okay.
So whether it's supposed that by default they are having all the authorities and responsibility from that organization, from the management. Because they're in some of the some of the Indian organization, they are not a standard internal audit charter for these kind of audit, like warehouse audit or let's say logistic audit. They are not formal internal audit charter for this. Okay.
So again we are confusing. Anyone who would like to throw light what we have understood? Anyone, what did we understood in internal charter? Internal charter is provided for warehouse audit.
Shall I just express his value and my input? Actually, shall I say, Arpit?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead, Philip.
See, what he's trying to say that there is a department called warehouse, wherein there is a department called internal audit. They are basically authorized to conduct internal audit for their functions.
Right.
Now, since they are the authorized and handling the internal audit, and in India doesn't have a practice to carry out this audit also. This is what he's trying to say that. So how it can conclude that as an internal audit. Am I right? This is okay?
Yes. Basically, see what my question actually, currently I am in an organization, in a manufacturing organization. Okay. So I am into internal audit department of that organization. So suppose they give us an warehouse audit. So they are not a standard, though we have a scope for audit that these kind of works we will do, but there's no internal audit charter or so that where management is giving us a direction that this is what you need to do and this is what you are having. You are authorized to have all the access data and all these things. So basically my question is that by default I am in the authority to have all the data, right? Because management asks me to do the warehouse audit of its organization.
All right, so I'll tell you. So, okay, now I'm clear. Hershey, it's very simple. A lot of employed active functions may not be that mature. Okay, first of all, we need to understand that internal audit functions in every organization may not be very mature, which means that answering to your question, there could be organizations who are running without an internal audit charter. There are organizations who have not accepted and implemented IPPF also. Okay,
exactly.
So there could be no QIP, there could be no process of maintaining work papers, there could be various concerns and various way of working may be different. Normally, again, as said, so I recommend that as much as implementation of IPPF, and that's all about the CIA course also. So let's say if we are the internal auditors, we see the management will not know internal audit charter, or even the board will not know internal audit charter unless they come from a risk management background. Okay, or they come with that strong governance. So first of all, it's our responsibility as an internal auditor to educate them that why this document is important. What is it all talking about? So one is that it reflects sign of maturity if we encourage to do this. Okay. So that's first question. And the second question is anything that needs to be done formally is always good, right? So you will always accept that, okay, anything that is done formally, so that will always be good. So internal audit charter is one that formal document that is approved by the board, which clearly give that purpose, authority, and responsibility. Let's say, I'll give you a simple example. Let's say there could be tomorrow issue between the management and the audit team that, okay, why you have not done this, why you have not done that, or let's say there was a fraud going on company, why you have not done this. So we need to tell them, and we need to understand that it's not our primary responsibility to identify fraud. We need to understand the fraud risk. We need to evaluate them. But if you tell us as an employed function that it's our primary responsibility to detect fraud, that's not there. So these all kind of things are kind of documented in the internal audit charter. This helps us to avoid those conflicts that happen, and it gives a clear, transparent way that, okay, why we are there, what kind of authority we have, what is our responsibility to do. So it is just formalizing it. Now to answer your question that you said that, okay, the management has asked us to go and do warehouse audit or logistics audit. So one of the ask is that, okay, it could be a special request. Ideally, again, see, it all depends on maturity of the employed function. Ideally, in organization, there will be a structured way of doing it. There will be a risk-based audit plan prepared at the beginning of the year. And then based on that, as per the audit plan schedule, it will be done. It will be reported to the audit committee. Okay, so that's the normal. That's more in a more matured system. But let's say there are organizations which are less formal, and that can be there very well there. In that case, this way of working can be there. But again, see, if the automatically it's showing, it depends. See, management may also ask you that, okay, don't look into those areas. So that's where the independence and objectivity comes in. Let's say if the organization is not allowing you to get into that area, there's a scope limitation. Then it's an organization level issue, and then it's an organization independence impairment. Let's say if you're not doing it purposefully, if there was an area that was allocated for you, you have not done it, it's an objectivity impairment. So that's the way we have to see it. Unrestricted access, the internal charter just help us to formalize that, okay, this is the document based on which we are asking for it, and it's approved by the board.
So sir, if got it, sir. Sir, so if management is silent, so management cannot ask if I miss some area during audit, so management cannot say, right, that you didn't done this area which supposed to be done by you, because there is no internal audit charter, there is no formalized
Yeah, as I
document there,
said,
right?
see, no, one thing fundamentally you have to be clear, Harsh. Internal audit charter doesn't define the scope of internal audit. Okay, so scope, when we talk about scope of internal auditing, we're talking about the scope coverage of what are the things that we are going to audit. Let's say logistics audit, P2P audit, O2C audit, all the functions audit. These are the scope of audits. Scope of services is different. Internal audit charter talk about the scope of services. Scope of services is assurance, consulting, fraud, IT related engagement, stuff like that. Okay, it doesn't, internal audit charter will not say that, okay, you have to do logistics audit, you have to do O2C audit or P2P audit. Are you clear?
Yeah,
so that will be part of your risk-based audit plan. That will be part of your annual plan. Okay, so you don't have to confuse between the two.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Yeah, got it, sir.
Yeah, go ahead. Navneet, go ahead, please.
Sir, in case in some of the companies, it happens that we have an internal audit team and they are authorized to do assurance and consulting services. They're just authorized to provide both the services as a blend of. So in this case, how they are going to affect that independency and objectivity. So is there any such example for that?
Yeah, so I'll tell you. Navneet, see, we need to understand that when we are giving consulting services, it should be to an extent that it should not impair objectivity. I'll give you an example. Let's say there is a new system getting implemented in the company for a P2P tool, procure to pay tool. Okay. Now let's say the role that a CAE or let's say the role that the team is playing is helping in all the discussions that is happening with the implementation team, is helping in implementing it, helping in defining the controls. Everything is done by the internal audit team, not by the management team. Okay, ideally, who should do it? Ideally, the role of implementation of a new software will be done by whom? Should it be done by internal audit team or should it be done by the management team?
Management, basically the process owners.
Right, basically the process owners. Now, let's say the process owners doesn't have time, or process owners are not doesn't have sufficient knowledge, and so internal audit is doing that exercise. Now the ask is that now that assignment is not assurance, it is consulting, right? We are trying to help them. Yes or no?
Right.
Yes. So should we now go and give assurance service that, okay, whether the system was designed properly, the system was implemented properly, the system has all the right set of controls? Can we do our own work self-review? The answer is no. In that case, it will impair. So while we can give consulting engagements, while we can give consulting services, but the consulting services should be more advisory in nature. That's why we have to understand that we can advise, we can recommend. So if we are just saying that, okay, you should do this, but you have done it, not done, we'll come and evaluate during our assurance engagement. We can always recommend, but if we have designed, install, implement, we have done everything ourselves, then we cannot do assurance. Does that make sense now?
Right. And what happens, sometimes it happens that in a company there is a P2P process, but there is no such design SOPs and no such designs RCMs are there. So in case the audit team helping the or they are just highlighting it to the process owners that this is not theirs and you have to prepare it, or they are going to help them to prepare that those documents.
So again, as I said, see, let's try to understand that, okay, let's say the SOPs are not there. The CAE, the department have requested the employee team to help them to develop the SOPs. Now, if we are developing the SOPs, there are two ways of doing it. One is that, okay, we will draft the as-is process, or we will do a gap assessment and then we'll draft a 2B process and agree it with the client. Now, if we have done it, if we have designed it, we have drafted it, we have done it. So can we now evaluate the same SOP? Can I say that, okay, the SOP is complete in nature if I have only drafted it? The answer is no, right? I cannot do self-review. We need to be fundamentally clear that we cannot do a self-review. If my team or I have done the same work, should I do my own team, the same team member should review it? The answer is no. As a CA, we should understand, okay, let's say even if there is a team, let's say it's a big team. Let's say there's a set of team members who have done it. In order to avoid independence or objectivity, in order to reduce that, there could be a different team who should go and do that, okay, whether the completeness is there or not. Make sense? So I'm not saying that we should deny it. I'm saying is that first, it is the responsibility of the management. Second is it can come as a consulting project. If you have done it, then we should not do assurance on that if it is to that extent. If you have just recommended it, if you have advised it, we can do assurance. But if you have designed, installed, implement, drafted everything, then we should not do. Is it clear now?
Okay.
Make sense?
Right, sir. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Good. Yeah. So, yeah, please go ahead, Rakesh.
Sir,
folks, last two questions and then we'll take a quick break. I think it's almost 8:30, answer 3 hours. It's good, but normally we take breaks in 2 hours time. So last two questions and then we'll take a quick 10 minutes break. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead, Rakesh.
Yes, sir. Sir, my understanding, I'll just express. If it is wrong, you please advise me. Internal audit charter will be actually telling me that what is my duty, what is my reporting structure. Will I be what is my like, for example, what do I do, like risk-based internal audit and my appointment, my authority, like that. And the audit, whatever I'm taking, for example, logistics, I'm taking that and all, the logistics, supply chain, whatever it is, that will be my audit planning structure. Is my understanding correct, sir?
Yeah. So see, I'll tell you. So there are 5 things that has to be mandatorily there in internal audit charter: the purpose, authority, responsibility, scope of services, and clearly saying that, okay, there should be QIP program. Okay, QIP program is Quality Assurance Improvement Program, which means that internal audit function should comply to the IPPF framework. Okay, so those are the 5 mandatory things. Now, appointment piece that you have said, appointment, and you also mentioned that
responsibility, duties.
Yeah, responsibility and duties is there. Purpose, authority, responsibility is there. So that is going to be there. But if you're saying that, okay, appointment structure, reporting structure, that can still not be there in internal audit charter. There could be a separate governance structure for that.
Okay, sir. Is it our internal audit charter is always like prefixed to this thing, or I can make my own customized this thing?
See, as I said, so you want to make your own, you can make your own. You want to use a different language, you can use it. But those 5 things has to be there. And it's more generally standard. If you will go, see, all of you can have more detailed look on how an internal audit charter looks like in the part 1. So in the part 1, we have covered and seen 3 internal audit charters. So, okay, so how our internal audit charter looks like, you can choose to look at the part 1 videos. I don't want to get into that position at this point of time. But it's again easily available. You just do a Google internal audit charter, you will see various companies, you can see internal audit charter, right?
Okay, sir.
But you will see normally those 4-5 things will always be there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So the last question, Grusha has mentioned, if a CA is extended responsibility of CCO, which is Chief Compliance Officer also, can he get his team of audit involved in compliance function? And if yes, if his team does this, then would it be objectivity impairment from his team point of view or CA's point of view? See, if the CA has an extended position and the CA has been asked to do the same audit of his own area, then it's an organization independence impairment. Yeah, so it will be organization independence impairment. Does that solve your query, Grusha? Yes? No? Yes, Dilip, there is normally a session break after 2 hours. Is it clear, Grusha?
No, I'm just asking that while performing a function of CCO by a CAE, because for an organization, an audit team and a compliance team needs to be different team, right? But if a senior person CAE has been extended with an
additional position
as CCO, but the teams needs to be different. But in some ways, somehow, if he asks the audit team to perform that function or gets involved in that compliance function, which is another,
this will be organization independence level impairment. It's so we'll cover that. We'll cover that. So after the break, we have that concept also. If you see, there's a same example which is mentioned on the point 2. So we'll cover that. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So folks, let's take a quick 10 minutes break. Or let's take a quick 15 minutes break. It's 8:30. Let's connect at 8:45 and then we'll take it up from there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
Okay, sir.
All right, folks, are you all with me? Can I quickly hear the word yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Nitesh, are you with us? Mudad, Vineet,
Back. Yeah.
Govardhan,
Yeah.
Grusha, Bashir, everyone?
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, right, so let's come back on where we left, folks. So I think we have Komal, please keep yourself on mute. All right. So far, folks, we have understood the entire IPPF framework. So we have talked about the mandatory guidance and the recommended guidance. Now moving on to the next important part is around independence and objectivity. So while we have understood objectivity, we'll share some thought on the independence as well. So two important things. Okay, so there's a long message by Gosha. Let us cover that and then come on that. It says if an external audit team helps in gap analysis of SOPs or process of engagement client beyond its audit scope for that period, he can not do an assurance audit for that function of the company. Or if it does it, so it's considered as an independence impairment. But can we take this as since the SOPs are authorized by the top management of the engagement client, the ultimate responsibility does not lie with auditors and thus they can do assurance audit later of that function. So Grusha, as I said, see, it depends. So it depends on at what level this is done. But let's say, see, the ideal answer is if we have designed, installed, implemented everything, we should not take assurance for that. If we have done consulting of such nature that it can impair our own work, then in that case we should not give assurance. But saying that if you're giving an example where ultimately, see, the top management has accepted those SOPs and it's their responsibility to kind of implement them and manage them day-to-day basis. If you want to give an assurance later on, see, we cannot give assurance on the coverage of the SOP. Are you getting it? But additionally, whether the things are being done as per the SOP or not, in future we can probably do it. Make sense?
Can you repeat once?
So I'm saying that let's say if we have, so like I think Rakesh also asked this question. Let's say if we have helped the organization to draft the whistleblower policy of the company, okay, and we have sent them, and finally management has accepted it. Now, whether the whistleblower process has been implemented by them or things are being done as per the SOP or not, that we can still do it. But can we evaluate that whistleblower policy ourselves since we have only drafted it? The answer is then it is not correct. Make sense? So if the SOPs have been drafted by us, then if you want to evaluate whether the SOPs are adequate enough and cover everything, the answer is it should not be done.
No, my point is it's not that we have drafted the SOPs, we have just given our inputs while framing the SOPs.
No, if we have given inputs, so if we have given inputs at any point of time, if we have done any recommendation, any advisory, anything, then we can always give assurance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Great.
Here, impairment means a deviation or it is a damage to the company? Just to
impairment means that basically it's basically we have not done the work as in alliance to the code of conduct, in alliance to the code of ethics. We have impaired what we were supposed to do. In a way.
Deviation. That's what I mean. Right?
It's like a deviation of our rules and responsibilities. Is that we have not done the work properly? So we are impairing. We are impairing the code of conduct.
Deviating from the actual practice, right? This is what we can achieve.
So impairing with the code of conduct, impairing with the standards that are being guided by the IA. So that's like that.
So just to understand, impairment have different meaning to different context. So just trying to align that. My view.
No worries. All right.
Thank you.
So now
can we say that as it is not in line with prudent practice? Impairment. What one more gentleman just now he spoke.
So prudent practice, again, you can say that, but you can say that in that way. But again, what we are trying to learn here from the CIA perspective, we're trying to say impairment. When we talk about, we are either impairing to the standards, we are either impairing, or we are violating to the standards, or the objectivity is getting impaired, or the independence is getting impaired, or the integrity is getting impaired. So that is the way we have to do it.
Okay, sir.
All right. So folks, now we have understood IPPF. Now there's one more important thing that you all need to remember. So we have talked about under the IPPF, under the mandatory guidance, there were 4 things that we've talked about: definition, core principles, standards, and code of ethics. Okay. Is that clear? Is that what we've studied? Yes. Now what do you think? Whatever was there in independence and whatever was there in core principles, do you think that all of those things are covered in standards and code of ethics? Yes or no?
Yes.
So if you see integrity, if we talk about competency, if we talk about objectivity, in fact, when we move forward about organization independence, so those are also part of standards. So if we see the next part, which is organization independence, proficiency, the resources, the professional care, continuing professional development, all of these are part of the standards. Okay, there are standards for it, right? So if you go back on attribute standards, If you see here, we have mentioned proficiency, due professional care, continuing professional development. So what I'm trying to say is, what do you think? Definition and core principles, whatever it had, definition had 4-5 things, right? Independence, objectivity, assurance, consulting, add value, GRC process. And the core principles had those 10 core principles. Do you think all of that is covered in the standards and code of ethics?
Yes.
Yes. So can I say that? Can I say that if the standards and code of ethics is, can I say that if the standards and code of ethics are being complied, so which means the definition and core of principles will automatically get complied? The answer is yes or no?
Yes.
So good. So that is one thing that we need to take a note here. If you can all read it out together, if we go back on this note, it says the core principles and the definition of auditing are encompassed in the code of ethics and the standard. Thus, conformance with the code and the standards demonstrates conformance with all the mandatory elements of IPPF. Can you all read it together? Can you all read it together, folks? This one,
the core
principles
and definition of internal auditing are encompassed in the code of ethics, standards, conformance with the code and the standards,
and the standards demonstrates conformance with mandatory elements of the IPPF.
Mandatory elements of the IPPF.
Right. So makes sense, right? So is that clear? So in the examination, if it is asking you somewhere for this perspective that, okay, the code of ethics and the organization was complying to the code of ethics and the standards. So can the organization say that they were complying to the IPPF? The answer is yes, right? Because code of ethics and the standards, for IPPF, it doesn't mean that, okay, we have to also comply for core principles definition. If the code of ethics and standards are getting complied, which means that the core principles definition will automatically get it, right? Makes sense now? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right. So let's move forward, folks. Last 3 slides, and with that, we will complete the entire base for the next part, and then we will start probably, I think we'll not get enough time to start on the actual part 2, unit 1 today. So we'll probably start it in the next session, but let's complete our complete base understanding in this session, because a lot of these words you will see as you move forward in the part 2. So from that point of view, we need to have a very strong base, and for that, sorry, there's some disturbance. May I request you to keep yourself on mute? Yeah. So the last 3 slides, and with that we'll complete the entire base, which is very important for part 1 also, and this will be a foundation base for people who have come directly for the part 2. Is that clear? Can we move forward? The last 3 slides, folks. Yeah. All right. So now moving on to another important part, which is called organizational. So there's a word independence and objectivity. Everyone is clear with objectivity now? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. So now two important things that you need to remember for independence and objectivity. Anyone from the part 1 who would like to tell me what is the difference between independence and objectivity? What is the key thing that we need to remember? Anyone who could remember?
Sir, independence is like organization level, and objectivity is individual level.
Right. Very good. Yes. Gurusha, you want to say something?
I wanted to say the same thing.
Okay. Perfect. So exactly, folks, this is something that you need to remember. You need to kind of consider that when you are answering various questions, whenever it comes, be it in part 1, sometimes maybe in part 2 also. So something that you need to remember whenever the word independence comes in, just remember when we are talking about organization level independence, we are talking about an organization level attribute. Objectivity is always an individual attribute. So one of you actually asked a question that, let's say the internal audit team member has informed there was a fraud going on in the company. The internal audit team member has informed to the CAE or to the supervisor that, okay, there was a fraud going on. Now that the CAE or the supervisor have chosen not to inform to the management and the board, is the internal audit that team member is impairing the objectivity? The answer is yes or no? No. But let's say there is a significant level of fraud, but the objectivity, but the CAE doesn't inform to the board, to the senior management. At what level is the impairment is happening for the objectivity? Is the internal auditor level or the CAE level? CAE level, right? So CA may impair the objectivity at that point of time. So that's how we have to read it. Objectivity is an individual level thing. If we are accepting the gift, it's what? It's an individual level thing, right? If you're accepting an assignment where there is a conflict of interest, it is what? It is an individual level thing. If we are believing that everything is going well as per our past experience, this is an individual level thing. Am I making sense? Yes or no? Yes. All the examples that we have covered in objectivity, if you think properly, if we have accepted the gift, if there is a conflict of interest, we have accepted and participated in that assignment, if we are giving an opinion based on our prior experience, if you are not performing the work, if you are not disclosing adequate information, these are all individual level things, right? If there is a scope limitation, this is what, individual level thing, or this is the organization level thing?
Organizational level.
So then it becomes an organization dependence attribute. If let's say if there are no adequate number of resources being provided to the internal audit team member to execute things, it will be an individual level thing or organization level thing. It will be organization dependence impairment, right? If the CA doesn't have direct access to the board, CA is said that, okay, you report to the finance controller and finance controller will go and inform to the board. This is what, objectivity, individual level thing or organization level issue?
Organization level.
Organization dependence impairment. Okay. So right. So I think there was one question from Rosha also for the CCO responsibility, right? So it says this: if the CAE has additional responsibility more than the internal audit function, and the organization is asking that, okay, you should also review your own work, then it's an organization level impairment. Okay. So it's mentioned here, the CA area of responsibility is broader than that of internal audit, and they execute an audit in one of those areas. For example, if the CA is also functioning as a chief compliance officer and a chief compliance officer audit is conducted, in a case like this, additional oversight is required. It should be beyond it could be an external team doing that. Make sense? Yes? Yes, is that clear, everyone?
Yes.
Yeah. Great. So I think we have already covered internal audit budget related points. We've talked about scope limitation. Let's say if the CEO of the company is not supporting the internal audit team, in that case also it will be an organization level issue. If the internal audit charter is not approved by the board, this is an individual level thing or it's an organization level thing? It's an organization independence. If the majority of the audit committee members are within the organization, or it's an organization level issue or individual level issue? Again, so
organization.
So this is how you have to take it, folks. Okay, so I think we are all clear on this. Yeah, Vineet, please go ahead.
Yeah, Arpit, I have a question. So my organization has an audit committee as well as a board. So who should be responsible for approving the IA charter?
Okay, so in that case, see, if the roles and responsibilities such, see, normally the way we understand is the board is the highest governing body, but the roles and responsibility can be further dedicated to our audit committee. So we can go to the audit committee level and get the approval from the audit committee itself.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So yeah.
Sir, this is Rakesh here. Sorry for interrupting. Audit committee is only a subcommittee.
It's a subcommittee. You can say it's a specific
it's
committee.
Only a sub of board. So BOD only should be approving us. Is my understanding correct, sir?
No. So see, there could be sort of roles and responsibility that could be dedicated to certain committees, right? So let's say we need to understand it at an overall level. Let's say there's a compensation committee separately. There's a risk committee separately. There's an audit committee separately. Okay. So there are three different committees that is there. It depends on organization to organization. The audit committee will normally appoint a CA. In that case, it will not be going to the board. Audit committee will also have members of the board. Normally, you will see in audit committees, there will be independent board members. It could be members from the board itself.
Correct.
So right, so let's say there are 10 members in the board. Okay, but out of those 10 members, there are 3-4 members who are also part of the audit committee. So they may dedicate the responsibility to the audit committee. There could be few members that may be looking at the compensation committee. There could be a few members separately looking at the risk committee. So there could be different committees formed for different purposes. Since they have the board members, we can go to the audit committee and release it. It's not that we have to bypass audit committee and go to the board. Audit committee is sufficient. Make sense?
I think that means they delegate the power to the committee, right? This is what.
Yeah, they delegate the power to. So normally, what you will see is there will be an audit committee charter also. So like we have internal audit charter, normally there's an audit committee charter also, which clearly says that what is the audit committee roles and responsibilities. Since with that audit committee charter, the audit committee charter will have all these roles and responsibilities, so we can go to the audit committee. And normally that is also seen. So normally as per the, if you see in India, most of the listed organization will have this requirement to have the audit committee in place. So, and as employers, we go and report to the audit committee.
Okay, sir.
Okay, makes sense.
Okay.
Even sometimes they also appoint the kind of something called task force. Also, they do that. Task force.
See, task force is normally for the special assignments, right? So there is something that is disruptive or something special focus is required. So normally I've seen task force being appointed for that purposes. If you want to share more on Dilip on this, I'm more than happy to share.
No, see, Adani has different developed compliance task force. We have basically under this, they delegate some of the tasks by the audit committee team to us. So this because here they have practice of having this task force for each of this functional area. And we
no, that is something different. Okay, so that's a good point. If you have made, see, this is something that we'll understand in the 3 lines model also in the unit 1 of the part 2, but that's a very good point that you've brought in. Task force is different. Task force is now then in that case is an execution team. So so let's say the audit committee cannot delegate the responsibility to the CFO or to the CEO of the company to approve the employment charter. Okay, so if that is a problem, then it's an organization level independence impairment. Okay, we should go to the audit committee. We should have direct access to the audit committee. Now, let's say even if the audit committee says that, okay, you have to report to the financial controller only. In that case, if the audit committee is only not allowing a direct access to the board or direct access to the audit committee, there's no direct access. It's an organization level impairment. So in your example, Dilip, let's say there is a task force that has been assigned for compliance. And if we don't have direct access to the audit committee, we have to route it through them. In that case, it will be organization independence impairment. Make sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So as an internal auditor, please take a note, folks. As an internal auditor, we should have direct access to the board. When we say direct access to the board is the highest governing body. It could be the trustees, it could be the governors, it could be the board members, it could be in any name. It is the highest governing body. It can further delegate its responsibilities to at audit committee level. Is that clear now? Am I making sense? Everyone fundamentally clear? This is very important for all of us to know.
Sir, sir, whether the auditor should have or the audit function head should have.
Audit function should have. Audit function head. CA should have direct access.
CA should have. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
But so again, depends on this structure, right? In governance, में जो दो part होते हैं, process and structure. This is we're talking about a structure part here, right?
Yes, structure. So you can say CA should have direct access to the board from a structure point of view, right?
Right. Okay, thanks.
Sir, can we say these CA should access to the appropriate authority when we are like saying board or senior management or whoever like?
See, I will not say that. See, appropriate authority is something different. So again, these are all very critical terms that we use when we kind of go through the sessions in detail. So let's say there has been some impairment. Okay, this is again one fundamental concept that we understand normally in part 1. So let's say there is an impairment that has happened. Now, whom should we report? Now, there is a term that the standard says that we should report to the appropriate authority. Now, what is the appropriate authority? Appropriate authority is, it could be operational management, it could be senior management, it could be the board. So appropriate authority is not the right term. Here it is clearly, see, appropriate authority can be financial controller also, right? So appropriate authority, we should avoid it. It should clearly say that the CA should have direct access to the board or board appointed committee.
Okay, sir. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the last question.
Sorry, one question. Appropriate position or appropriate authority, both are same or different?
See, appropriate position is when we say that we have a dual reporting relationship and we have direct access to the board. Appropriate authority appropriate authority is the, you can say operational management is the appropriate authority. Senior management is the appropriate authority. Board itself is the appropriate authority, right? Okay. So where we should go, whom should we report to? Let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say if there is an impairment that has happened. Okay, let's say and this is again one of the concepts that we learn in the part 1. So it's good for you all also to understand. So from a fundamental concept clarity point of view, let's say if there is an impairment that has happened, or they're presumed to, it looks like there will be an impairment, but it is not in real impairment. Or let's say there can be a situation that the impairment has been noted after the assignment has been completed. In all these 3 scenarios, whom should we report this impairment? So the standard says that we should report to appropriate authority. It says that, okay, if it just looks like there is an impairment, but it is in true sense or in real, it is not an impairment. In that case, the CAE or the supervisor should inform to the operation management and can document it as part of an announcement memo or part of the report itself. Let's say if the CAE knows that, okay, it's actually an impairment. So the appropriate authority is senior management and the board. The CAE will go to the senior management board and say that, okay, there is an impairment. So what will take their inputs and kind of inform them. But let's say if the CAE note after the audit is completed that there was an impairment, then in that case, the CAE needs to go to the operation management as well as the senior management and the board. So are you getting it? What is appropriate authority? Appropriate authority is where we need to go and tell, right? And appropriate position is having a dual reporting relationship position to get direct access to the board, to get direct access to the board. Make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Gurush is saying, can we take this as for a CAE audit committee's highest governing body? Yes, you can take it. Gurush, you can take it. Audit committee can be the highest governing body. All right. So I think we are all clear so far. Am I loud and clear? Everyone can hear me? Yes?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So moving on, it says the CEO accused the new auditor for not operating in the best interest of the organization. So if the CEO itself is not supporting, in that case, it may be an organization level impairment. The majority of the audit committee members came from within the organization. Again, an organization level issue. It can be an organization level impairment. The internal audit activity charter has not been approved by the board. Again, it's an organization level impairment. Folks, whenever we say that the charter needs to be approved by the board, whenever we say that so and so needs to be approved by the board, it can be as simple as through with the help of board meeting, minutes of meeting and stuff. That can be a sufficient document for approval. It is not necessary that someone has to sign it formally. Even if it is discussed and there is a minutes of meeting and such documents are it's captured in the board minutes, it can be called out as approved. Is that clear? Yes or no? Yes?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Wonderful. Objectivity impairment. I think we have all covered this example. Auditing an area where a close friend or relative is employed. Auditing an area where the auditor worked within the previous year, allowing undue influence from someone senior to the auditor to adjust the scope of the audit. Assuming without evidence that an area being audited has effectively mitigated risk based solely on prior positive experience or personal experiences, accepting gifts, designing, installing, this all are examples of objectivity impairment. Okay, so moving on to the next part, which is auditor proficiency. So auditor proficiency, what did we understood? Proficiency is what, at an individual level or collective? Everyone, what is proficiency called? Proficiency collective. So can you all read this together? Proficiency, what is the keyword? Collectively possess. Can you all read this together?
Needed to perform the responsibility.
Right. So we as an employee team should collectively possess or obtain the competencies needed to perform the responsibilities. There are 10 core competencies from the competency framework, which we as employers should have. One is we should understand the professional ethics, which is the code of ethics that we've talked about. We should understand the IPPF framework. Again, we should understand what is governance, what is risk, what is control, what is business acumen. We should understand, we should have a good communication skill set. We should be able to persuade and collaborate. We should be critical thinkers. We should understand how to manage internal audit function, internal audit management, internal audit assignments. We should be able to deliver internal audit deliveries, and we should improve and innovate. So those are the 10 core competencies that are expected out of us as an internal audit team. Is that clear? Are you all clear with proficiency? The keyword is collective. Okay, is that clear? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So moving on to the next part is internal audit resources. Now this is something again you will see when you are going to read the part 2 unit 1 also. So when we are talking about and if you go back on the unit 1, if you see the subunits that we have talked about, it also covers internal audit resource requirements, right? It talks about, and this is a very important subunit, as I've already told at the beginning. So in order to have just a fundamental base, folks, on this particular topic, we're talking about internal audit resources. This could be internal resources, this could be external resources, right? So normally internal audit can be performed by within the organization, the same team, or it could be external team support, right? Yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So how do we know that whether the team has the right skill set, knowledge, and all? It could be based on how do we know? How will a CAE evaluate whether the internal audit team members has the right skill set or not? Simple, folks, very simple. How do we know?
Depending upon the qualifications, experiences,
depending on the
certifications,
certifications, depending on the kind of assignments that person has done during the year, right? Depending on the additional certifications they have done. So one is during hiring practices. The person can be evaluated that what kind of experience the person is bringing in. The second could be periodic skill assessment. The third could be staff performance appraisal that is done on a half-yearly basis, quarterly basis, annual basis, and the continuing professional development, what sort of trainings the person has done. So all of those can be the basis of evaluating the skill set that is there in internal resources. Given the scenario that this internal team doesn't have the adequate knowledge skill set, we can outsource the work to the external agencies, right? So organization may outsource all or some of the functions of the employee activity. Is that clear? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So one thing that you need to take a note of is, again, when we are outsourcing, can we outsource the overseeing responsibility? The answer is
no.
No. So anyone who would like to throw light on this is again an important topic. When we say oversight responsibility, are we talking about what are we talking about?
oversight responsibility only with only board of directors.
Right. Very good, Rakesh. So folks, when we are talking about oversight responsibility of the internal audit activity function is okay. So are you all with me? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So when we are talking about oversight responsibility, what are we talking about? Oversight responsibility of the internal audit activity function is of whose? CAE or the board?
Board of directors.
Board of directors.
Board of directors has the oversight responsibility of the CAE. So in the organization, there could be a scenario that there is no CAE also, right? So can we outsource oversight responsibility to someone else? The answer is no. Oversight responsibility will always be within the organization. Is that clear, everyone? Yes.
Yes.
Sir, when we say oversight responsibility, it means that board will be answerable for any miss. So
board will not be answerable. See, board has to ask the right set of question to the management, to the internal audit function, that okay, whether so overseeing responsibility is always where the board can ask the right set of questions, can oversee that the work is done properly at a broader level point of view, right? So oversee that okay, things are being done on a timely basis. So at a very overseeing point of view. Sorry, there's some disturbance, guys. Folks, may I request you to all please follow the basic protocol? There's some significant disturbance happening. So is that clear? Is that clear, everyone?
Yes, sir, yes. Yeah, got it, sir.
All right. So let's move forward. So the next important thing is due professional care. So due professional care is again important keyword under due professional care is reasonable assurance. Now this is again something that we need to remember, and this is also part of the part 2 unit 1. What is reasonable assurance? Can anyone share some thought? What is reasonable assurance?
Can I?
Yeah, please go ahead, Rusha.
So reasonable assurance is like an auditor cannot give an absolute assurance in case of any revelation is done by an employee of the organization for which the auditor is doing an audit. And if he says that there is a fraud going on, but do not take my name or do not reveal my identity, who has informed you. So in that case, the auditor cannot confirm him that yes, I will keep your name secret. He can say that I will try to do it, but I'm not sure. I do not give an absolute assurance. I can give you a reasonable assurance.
So Grusha, you mixed two concepts.
Yes.
Yeah. So you mixed two concepts, but no worries. But that's a good try. So anyone else? Harsh, you want to go ahead?
Due professional. So this is Rakesh here.
Yeah,
due professional care. Can I say that what is expected I'm delivering without with my unbiased mindset?
So unbiased mindset was objectivity, right?
So basically,
I'm doing my job with the proper coverage I'm giving you.
Yeah.
Without.
So the question was, what is reasonable assurance? Not
yeah. So basically, so okay, let me tell. Basically, reasonable assurance means a auditor cannot be like guaranteed, yes, there won't be any fraud. Okay, that he have checked each and everything, and there won't be fraud. He cannot say like an absolute assurance. He cannot give an absolute assurance like there's no fraud. Might be in future there are some circumstances where some mishappening will find. So this is, I guess, it's a reasonable assurance.
Yeah. See, so normally in the future we never talk about the. So one is that we never talk about the future, right? Future, anything can happen. Now the second thing is, yeah. Please go ahead.
Can I try once again?
Yeah. Please go ahead, Rusha.
Yeah. So next thing, what I can understand is, as an auditor, we can give an assurance that we will try to. We cannot give an absolute assurance that yes, fraud will be detected.
Right.
So we can give an. It's not our primary responsibility, which is expected out of us, that yes, we will definitely find out that fraud is there and we will detect it. We can give a reasonable assurance. Is that correct?
No, not.
Arpit, can I try?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Please go ahead. Namneet, please go ahead first. Let Namneet go, and then one by one you others can.
Can I give a try? So I guess sometimes it happens that on the basis of some sampling, what we do, we give our results. We provide some reports to the stakeholders that this is the one, and there is some frauds in case we detect something like that. So there might be a chance that we select a sample in which we got that fraud, and sometimes it happens that we didn't get that particular fraud in the area where we just do the sampling or do that particular process of internal audit. So that's why we always give a reasonable assurance that yes, we are giving this on the basis of the sample we have selected, but we can't provide the absolute assurance about the whole 100% population.
Absolutely, very good, very good, Amit. So that's a good state. That's one of the good reason why we cannot give absolute assurance. Wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Inherent risk is also, I think play a good role, and that's why we can't provide a, absolute assurance.
Right, right. So what is inherent risk? You would like to throw some light on that?
So inherent risk is that, there are certain chances that collusion, any activity which is happened through the collusion of employees, which is difficult to detect. And and when we are going for audit, we do not go with the mindset there is a any fraud and other things. We go for a control testing based on our risk-based approach, and that's maybe the, I think, reason. I may or may not able to clear it by my own language. So it would be good if you can provide on insight, and it would be good for the other audience.
I'll surely provide it.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah,
sir,
but that's a good idea.
Sir, this is Rakesh here. One small query. Is my reasonable assurance and my audit risk is directly proportional? Because you said that because one more there was a query like if I'm not detecting the risk, so that is what it is like reasonable assurance. So is my audit risk and my reasonable assurance is like directly proportional?
See, I'll not say that. See, reasonable assurance is a different concept. Audit risk is a different concept. So audit risk is that we may end up giving inappropriate audit opinion, right?
Yeah,
so
I'm not detecting the appropriate this thing, and my sample is saying me that everything is pakka. So if in that case, whether my reasonable assurance is that it is proportional to it?
No, see, reasonable assurance. So that's why I'm saying you cannot link that. Okay, so audit risk is talking about that there is a potential that I as an auditor or we as an auditor may give an incorrect opinion.
Yes.
We can give an incorrect opinion to the management, right? So we may give an opinion that everything is going fine, but in true sense, it is not going fine. Or we can give a vice versa case that we inform the management that okay, everything is not fine, so there are problems going on, but in true sense, the things are going fine. So that's an audit risk, right? We are giving an incorrect opinion. Yes, reasonable assurances where we are saying that okay, like I think Namrata, it was
reasonable assurance is like I'm not able to give a clean sheet.
So yes, like Namit said that there could be one reason is sampling, right? So we don't do 100% validation for that purpose. For that purpose, we are not giving 100% absolute assurance or guarantee that everything is going fine or not fine. Okay, so we are just giving a reasonable assurance.
Can I have a statement here? Sorry, a statement here. One, no guarantee. There is a possibility. Potential event can occur. This is what can be assumed.
Potential event can occur. See, whenever we are talking about assurance, potential event can occur is a futuristic, right? Thing. When we are giving an assurance, we're talking about something that has already been passed, right? So something that has already been done or already been completed, we are going and validating it and giving an assurance for those areas. So in future, what will happen? We are never giving an assurance for that. We are giving an assurance which is already completed activity, right? Normally that's the approach that we follow. Now, why we are giving reasonable assurance is because we cannot do 100% validation. Even if we are doing 100% validation, let's say if there are 1,000 vouchers for payments that have been processed, and we have checked all that 1,000 vouchers, can we give absolute assurance that all those 1,000 vouchers are correct?
No,
right? So there are 2 or 3 fundamental reasons why we cannot do it. One is that there could be collusion. Okay. So if there is a collusion, let's say there is a right bill, there is a right entry in place, there is a GRN. Let's say there is a GRN document that the material is received, everything is there. All the 3-4 parties have have come together and all of them have colluded together and they have provided all the supportings. Can we do anything beyond it? Probably we'll check the documentation and feel that everything is there, right? So in that case, there could be collusion due to which we still will not be able to give absolute assurance. The second is there could be out of that 1,000 vouchers, when we're checking it, can we go somewhere wrong? There could be a human judgment error at the auditor end, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. So there could be a human judgment error also. So that could be another reason of not giving a absolute assurance. There could be a human judgment error in evaluating it. So that's again a reason of reasonable assurance. The third is the management may override the controls, right? So management may override the controls. So that could be third reason. The fourth is the cost of control may be more than the benefit. So if there are lakhs of transactions, we cannot check 100%, right? If the cost of doing that will be much more than the benefit. So that's why we give reasonable assurance. So there are 4 reasons why we give reasonable assurance: collusion, human judgment, cost of control, and
management overriding the control.
Management overriding. Is that clear, everyone, now? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Are you all clear
Yes.
with reason? Yeah, inability to be wrong. Yes. So it's we cannot be like we cannot go wrong. It's not that we cannot go wrong. We as auditors can also go wrong. Okay. So when we, so folks, that's about due professional care. When we are talking about reasonable assurance, we are saying that we should perform our work with necessary due professional care, and what are the factors to be considered? We should conform with the code of ethics. We should be systemic and follow a disciplined approach. We should apply the IPPF. All of those, if we do it, we will be able to execute our work with due professional care. And as I said, that our work is to provide reasonable assurance, not give a guarantee. Not give a guarantee or not give an absolute 100% assurance. Please take a note. Please remember that anywhere in any option given in the examination, if it is giving absolute assurance, if it is talking about guarantee, that is not our role. Please take a note. Okay, that is not our role. And where we have talked about that, okay, there was a fraud going on. It's not our primary responsibility of the fraud to detect fraud. Yes, that's the right statement. It's not our primary responsibility to detect a fraud. But let's say there was a fraud going on, whether we have evaluated the fraud risk and controls or not. We cannot say that we don't have knowledge to evaluate fraud risk and controls. That is a skill set that is expected out of us. Okay. So we should have adequate knowledge to evaluate fraud risk and controls. But is it our primary responsibility to detect the fraud? The answer is no. Is that clear now?
Yes, sir.
Right. So let's say
one more query here, Arpit. In due professional care, if we talk about, does it mean that, let's say that we have a set up certain practices or document to be verified and validated? We said no, verification and validation, 2 parts to this. Can we assume that we are giving guarantee or not? Because we are taking care of the due professional care, right? I am ensuring that verification and validation both together. In that case, can we give complete assurance or not?
So see, assurance itself was expressing opinion. When we say complete assurance, again, we cannot give guarantee, we cannot give absolute assurance.
Even though we practice as a due professional care also, right? This is how you say that.
Yeah. See, we have to see, we don't have to confuse between due professional care and reasonable assurance. The answer is, whatever work we do, of course, we have to do it with due professional care. How we'll do it? We'll apply different engagement procedures. We will apply the necessary verification process. We will do different things to ensure that we have done our work with due professional care. Right now, after doing all that, we can only give reasonable assurance. We cannot give absolute assurance. As I said, there are 4 reasons to it. While we have done let's say validation of those 1,000 vouchers, there can be chances, right? So that during the testing process, we have a different mindset due to which we would have checked in a different way. So there could be 5-6 vouchers where the human judgment may have went wrong. So we cannot give absolute assurance. One is that simple reason. The second is that there could be collusion on the documentation. As I said, let's say there's a payment process. So let's say for any payment process, the material is received, the quality is checked, the GRN is booked in the system, the invoice is booked, and then the payment happens. Let's say we follow the entire process. The security team, we see the gate invert register, there is an entry. We see that there is a receiving document. We see that there's a quality document. We see that the invoice is booked. We see there is a valid invoice, and then the payment is done. Let's say all of them have colluded together. There's a gate entry that was just done while the material is not received. There is a GRN document that was prepared while the material has not physically received. There's a quality that has prepared a documentation that everything was found okay. Again, the material was not received. invoice was properly booked. They also say that, okay, everything is there, it's checked. All of them have colluded. Can we do anything beyond this?
No.
Based on the documentation, we will feel everything is fine, right?
Yes.
We have the gate entry, we have the GRN, we have the quality, we have the invoice approval, we have the payment proof, everything is there. So can we still say that, okay, that's a valid payment? There could be reason, right? All the 5 people have colluded, and we will not be able to give absolute assurance, right, that this is the right payment. There could be that physically material is not received and all of them have colluded together. Are you getting it?
Got it.
So if people have colluded, we cannot give absolute assurance. So that's a second reason. The third is the management may override the control. So let's say there is a control that the backdated voucher entry is not done. Okay, let's take an example. But there is a management has override that control. Management, the CEO says to the IT team, okay, no, remove that. Let's go and do a backend entry. So while you have done a system walkthrough to see there is no backdated entry, but management has overridden that control. That could be another reason why we cannot give absolute assurance. And the fourth is that we cannot check 100%, right? So the cost of validation may be more than the cost of the benefits it's going to provide. So that's the reason we cannot give absolute assurance. Make sense? The 4 reasons why we cannot give absolute assurance, everyone? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Is that clear? So, right, so let's move quickly forward, folks. It's almost, we are approaching towards the scheduled time of the session. I don't want to really stretch for everyone. It's the first session that we are having. So due professional care, let's take a quick read. Can you all say that together? What is the key word that we're looking at in due professional care? Everyone together.
Reasonable assurance.
Reasonable assurance.
Talking about reasonable assurance. Internal auditors must apply the care and skill expected of a reasonably prudent and competent internal auditor through what are the things that we should do as an internal auditor? Can you all say that together? Conformance with the
Code of ethics.
systemic and discipline approach, and we should apply the
application of IPPF.
What internal auditors should consider when the auditors are performing an engagement? Need and expectations of client. Can you all say that together? What are the internal auditors must consider? Need and expectation of clients. Extent of work and relative complexity, materiality, adequacy and effectiveness of the GRC process, probability of significant and
cost of assurance and related
potential.
Right. So this is again very important, folks. This possibility of significant errors, fraud, and non-compliance. This is very important whenever we are evaluating engagement, whenever we are doing an engagement planning piece, or whenever we are performing the engagement. We have to consider the probability of significant errors, fraud, or non-compliance, because it will involve accordingly the resource planning stuff also. That okay, what are the probability of significant errors? If there are probability of significant errors, we'll have the different possibility of the team being implement, different skill set team can be there. So those are the factors to be considered while doing a due professional care. Okay, moving on to the last part, continuing professional development. So now this is again important. So we as employers are expected to, yeah, please go ahead.
So by the last point, cost of insurance in relation to potential benefits mean that cost should not be more than the benefits.
Right. So like if we go with 100% validation, so it may, the cost of validating that may be more than the benefit it is going to provide. So right. So we as employers should consider that, right?
Okay.
Makes sense? All right. Moving on to continuing professional development. Again, what does it say? Let's say if I am 25 years experience person, okay, if I am a 25-30 years experience person employed, can I say that, okay, I have sufficient experience, I don't want to upskill myself, I don't want to enhance my knowledge? Is it correct statement?
No.
So ideally we should continuously improve, right? So let's say if I am doing an on-the-job work and it said that, okay, I'm getting a variety of experience all across the assignments that I'm executing. So I don't need additional training for that purpose. I don't want to do any additional certifications. I don't want to undergo any other skill assessment exercise. So is it a right statement? The answer is
no.
Right. So as internal auditors, we should enhance our knowledge, skill, and other competencies through continuing professional development. The standard says that the CIA, the practicing CIA, should at least undergo 40 hours of CPE trainings in a year, which includes 2 hours of ethics training, and people who are CIAs but who are non-practicing internal auditors. So let's say if I'm a certified internal auditor, but I'm not into internal audit anymore. Let's say I'm taking a role of a finance head of the company. Okay. So in that case, if I'm not anymore into internal audit function, in that case, if I have to maintain my CIA as a certification, in that case, I have to undergo 20 hours of training, which includes 2 hours of ethics training. Is that clear, everyone?
Yes.
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 Okay. So moving on to the, yeah, please go ahead.
I have a question in the oversight and responsibility in the internal audit resources. So can you just explain this with an example?
Yeah, so let's take an example that, okay, what is the oversight responsibility? So normally oversight responsibility would be whether the internal audit activity as a function is performing work properly or not, whether they are independent or not, right? So that whether the CAE is not, let's say, the decision of appointing a CAE is normally with the board and the audit committee. Okay, it's not by the CFO of the company, doesn't appoint should not ideally appoint the chief audit executive. So all these oversight responsibility that was with audit committee, that was with the board, this cannot be outsourced. So when we say external resources, when we say that, okay, we can take, let's say it's a small company, it doesn't have a chief risk officer, it doesn't have a chief audit executive. Can it outsource all its internal audit assignments to an external agency? The answer is yes or no.
No.
Why no?
Yes.
So yes, right.
Yeah.
So let's say there's a small, let's say there's an organization. Let's say even if it is a matured organization, it's a large organization. Is it mandatory to have an internal audit team for that purpose?
No.
They can until it's the regulation required. Until it's a regulation required, a company law says something particularly about it, or it's a different jurisdiction, different country says something about it very explicitly. The IA doesn't say that, okay, you should have an internal audit team mandatorily, right? You can always have an external audit team who can support you in executing the assignments. Now, the IA says that while you can outsource, say if you read this, it says organization may outsource all or some of the functions of the internal audit activity. However, oversight and responsibility for the internal audit activity must not be outsourced. So when it says that, okay, the responsibility of the board to oversee internal audit activity, the responsibility of the audit committee to oversee the internal audit activity, that should not be outsourced. It should not be that, okay, you appoint another team to oversee how the internal audit activity is functioning. Make sense?
Right. Gotcha.
Yes?
Thank you.
Great. So moving on to the last slide, folks, is all about the role of the board, senior management, and employers. And with that, we'll wrap up the session. The last very slide. It's again a very important thing that we need to kind of understand when we are going to study the part 2 entirely, that what is the role of board, role of the senior management, and role of the employers. So some of the keywords that you need to remember: the board has oversight responsibility. The board normally doesn't do day-to-day activities. The board doesn't implement things. The board doesn't design things. The board doesn't basically do day-to-day management. Okay, so the key word for board is what? The board oversee it. Is that clear? Are you all with me, folks? The last 5 minutes. Are you all with me quickly?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So what is the role of the board? Can you all say that together? The role of the board is oversight.
Oversee.
The role of the management is to design, implement, perform day-to-day work, set the necessary risk and controls. Everything needs to be done by the management. Okay. And what does the internal auditors do? Internal auditors assess, examine, evaluate, improve, recommend, report. So improve as in they don't go and implement it. They improve as in they recommend improvements. Are you getting it? So internal auditor responsibility is not to design, not to install, not to implement, not to implement the risk management framework. Nothing. Internal auditor has to evaluate. It has to evaluate, examine, assess. These are the responsibilities of the internal auditors. Make sense? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
sir.
So internal auditor will not say, okay, these are the controls, will not start managing the controls of the company. Internal auditors will not start do the day-to-day activities of the company. Internal auditor have to evaluate whether the controls are being effectively working. Okay, is that clear? Make sense? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right. So quickly, let's quickly take a read. What is governance? What is risk management? What is control? We'll understand in the next session, because that's also in the part 2, unit 1. So let's at this point of time understand what is the role of board, senior management, employers in governance. Can you all say that together? Board is responsible for. Can you all read it together?
Strategic decision, oversight,
the risk appetite and risk tolerance level,
interact
interact
directly with
directly
internal and
with the
external
internal
assurance
and
providers.
providers. Management is responsible for
Establish and maintain the organizational culture, strategy, and day-to-day governance functions.
And internal audit is responsible for
assess, examine, evaluate, improve, recommend, report.
Evaluate, improve, recommend, report. Folks, this is still much asked in the part 2 also. What is the role of employer? Please don't confuse yourself. We don't have to implement. We don't have to manage. Everything has to be done by management. Our role is assessing, evaluating, examining, recommending, all of those. Okay. Then moving on to risk management, what is the role of board? Can you say the keyword
Oversight.
is oversight?
Oversight.
Under the management, the keyword is establishing
Establish
and
and maintain
maintaining a
sound
sound risk
risk
management
management
function.
function.
And employed again, the keyword are assess,
Assess,
Examine,
evaluate, improve,
improve,
recommend,
and
report.
And the last word is the control. So we are talking about GRC, governance, risk management, and control. So what is the role of under the control? The overseeing responsibility of senior management. The day-to-day execution is of management, and employed is again the same. Assess, examine, evaluate. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Everyone clear so far? Yes or no? So now with
Yes.
that, we have covered the
Yes.
we have built an entire foundation from the part one. Honestly, these are two big units of the part one, which we have covered in one session today. We spend more than 4 sessions on this particular topic when we go through the part one. But I think what we have covered today will give you enough understanding to understand the base, and that is the maximum that is required for the part two. It's not that they will ask on these units. It is important to for you all to understand these concepts so that whenever you go through the part two content, you should be understand with these keywords. Now, are you clear with the word independence? Are you clear with the word objectivity? Are you clear with the word internal audit charter? Yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
Are you clear with
Yes.
what is assurance? Are you clear with what is consulting? Yes. Yes. So if you go back on the definition of internal auditing, are you clear with all this independence, objective, assurance, consulting? Yes. Tomorrow in the
Yes.
next session, we'll understand what is GRC, which is very well there in the unit 2 or in the part 2 also. And with that, if any questions, I'll take up the questions. Otherwise, we'll take it up forward from here in the next session, folks. Are we good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Small
So
dot
do we
here.
get this PPT?
All the PPTs will be uploaded on the LMS along with the recorded session. So you all can access from there. Okay. So you don't have to take screenshots. You don't have to worry about these PPTs. All of them get uploaded on the LMS portal and you can download it from there and have a fair view about it. So don't worry at all. We have to focus and listen in the sessions, folks. Okay. So
अर्पित एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन था डॉट का एक जैसे जीआर generally C means compliance or control. Generally we see GRC in the last C is basically compliance, governance, risk, and compliance. This is how we perform. But
so,
here I could see
so
that
from a definition point of view, it's GRC is governance, risk management, and control.
Okay. So
yeah. So a lot of companies have that way, that GRC function talks about governance, risk management, and compliance, but it's normally control.
But it is basically control, right?
Yeah, it's normally controls.
Good to learn this. Talk about GRC mostly about perspective.
Yes, a lot of people say that. Yeah.
I think good things. I think I've learned a lot of things today.
Great, thank you. So I think so. Komal is asking, can we have more MCQs to practice? Komal, there's enough question bank on the GLEM. So if are you talking beyond GLEM?
Yes, hopefully.
So Komal is asking, no, sir. Then practice GLEM. Okay. So Grusha, do we have a session tomorrow morning? Yes, Grusha, we have another session for the part 1 revision, because in the last part 1 revision that we did was actually till here. There's one more concept which is called QIP. I'll touch upon that at a very minimal level for the part 2, but you all need to understand what is QIP. When we cover the part 2 unit, we'll understand QIP, but very briefly, because QIP questions will not be asked in the examination, but we need to understand and have our foundations ready. So I'll share that concept from the part 2 point of view in tomorrow's session. But yes, for the part 1, we have one more revisionary session tomorrow morning, 9:30 to 1:30, which will be the last session for revisionary for the balance part of the part 1, which is from governance to the control and fraud related aspects. So one more chapter to help you all to revise part 1 quickly. 2 sessions to revise entire part 1. Yes.
Arpit, one more thing. Today I could hear some of the team members have passed the part 1 exams. Would you allow him to just talk about how difficult that level of difficulties, something like that, to share his view, how to prepare?
I'm not sure if they're still there.
I don't know. Maybe some of the class when you take it, if they pass, just share for 2 minutes.
Yeah, sure, Dilip. No worries. We normally have good chats during the sessions also, so that's not a problem. And also you can just drop a message. People very approachable, so you can have a separate discussion also. So
okay,
no worries at all. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. All right, great. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. See you tomorrow.